The school's awakening square was packed. Shadows flickered under the bright lights as the annual ceremony began. Every senior class stood in formation, waiting for the moment that would define their lives. I stood with Class 3 to 7, my heart hammering against my ribs. Class 3 to 7, Zhang Fan, the grade director shouted. I stepped forward. I was about 5'7", built sturdy and fit, but to the people around me, I was just a joke. The whispers started the second I moved. Zhang Fan, why waste national resources on a bottom-tier student? One guy sneered. No kidding. He's been dead last in every exam for 3 years straight. That kind of consistency is almost impressive. If it weren't for the law, I'd petition to kick him out of the ceremony. He's just wasting our time. I heard them. I'd heard them for years. I didn't look back. Instead, I channeled all that frustration into a single hope that I could break the mold and awaken a god-tier class. I wanted to see the look on their faces when I finally slapped them back with success. I stepped into the awakening formation. Wine-colored light surged from the floor, snaking into my body. It felt like a warm current, melting and reforming inside me, searching for the perfect combination. The light faded. The projection above the altar flickered to life. Awakening complete. Student, Zhang Fan. Class, Archer. Grade, F. My heart sank. The disappointment hit me like a physical weight. I stared at the floating letters, feeling hollow. Uffed. I knew he was trash, someone shouted. A glass cannon class at the lowest possible grade. F-rank Archer. It fits his loser persona perfectly. See? I told you. Zhao Ying's voice rang out, full of predictable arrogance. Zhao Ying stepped out from the crowd. She was the daughter of the influential Zhao family in Jiangzhou, treated like a queen by everyone in class. Everyone except me. I was the only one who never flattered her, which made me a target. To her, my existence was a provocation. She walked past me toward the altar, her eyes cold. Zhang Fan, learn your place. Someone with no background and no talent should live like a dog. She stepped into the formation. A moment later, a wave of intense heat blasted outward. Awakening complete. Student, Zhao Ying. Class, Fire Mage. Grade, B. The crowd gasped. A B-rank class was practically the ceiling for our school. She walked back down, intentionally letting her heat radiance flare, forcing the other students to stumble back. Trash, she whispered as she passed me. Do you see the gap now? You aren't even qualified to be my dog. I opened my mouth to fire back, but a sudden jolt stopped me. A spark of electricity crackled deep inside my chest. My skin began to flicker with blue light. Far beneath the earth, the core of the world trembled as if in fear, blurring into the void. Dual classes? Holy crap, the loser got 2 classes. The grade director's eyes widened. You student, come back up and test again. I stepped back onto the formation. This time, the wine-colored light was gone. In its place, pitch-black lightning erupted. The space where the bolt struck seemed to vanish, and time itself felt like it skipped a beat. It was over in a flash, so fast that no one truly saw the reality of it. I felt something trying to claw its way out of my mind, but the energy ran dry before it could finish. The screen updated. Student, Zhang Fan. Class, Archer. Grade, F, Element, Lightning. Haha, I knew it. One of Zhao Ying's lackeys barked. He's still trash. Most people awaken their element and class together. He's so pathetic he had to do it in 2 shifts. An F-rank Archer with Lightning? The base stats are so low the element won't even matter. What a waste. The grade director shook his head in pity. Only the principal frowned, muttering to himself about the black lightning he had never seen before. I didn't care about the insults. I wasn't angry. I was vibrating with excitement. I could feel the energy of that black lightning humming in my veins. It felt terrifying, far more powerful than Zhao Ying's B-rank flames. Shut up, all of you. A sharp voice cut through the mockery. Xu Yanran, our class teacher, walked toward us. She was the daughter of the city lord and only 3 years older than me. The crowd went silent immediately. I ignored them and pulled up my personal status panel in my mind. I scrolled past the basic info until I saw it. Name, Zhang Fan. Class, Archer. Quality, F rank. Hidden passive, Plunder. Automatically triggers upon killing a target. Randomly steals skills or attribute points. Stolen skills can be used regardless of class requirements. Element: God-slaying Black Bolt. I stared at the screen, my heart skipping a beat. The details of the God-slaying Black Bolt were insane. It ignored all defenses. It gave me a 100% boost to attack power and a 100% boost to agility. I did the math quickly. Even an SSS rank class only had base stats about 90% higher than an F rank. With this Black Lightning, my attack and speed already surpassed the starting point of the highest tier in existence. Then there was that hidden passive, Plunder. I could steal skills and attribute points from anything I killed. No class restrictions. No element limits. I wasn't just an archer. I was going to become a god who could do everything. Deep in my mind, I felt something else stirring, something ancient. Was it a hallucination? Maybe it was just a side effect of awakening such a terrifying element. With Chu Yenran standing there, the rest of Class 3 stayed quiet until the ceremony ended. As soon as she turned her back and left the square, the peace shattered. Zhang Fan, you trash, stay right there. I stopped. Jin Xiaohua was walking toward me, flanked by two of his usual lackeys. His father managed a hotel for the Zhao family, so Xiaohua spent every waking moment trying to kiss Zhao Ying's ass. He wanted to secure his father's future, and he figured the best way to do that was by making my life a living hell to entertain Zhao Ying. What's the matter, Zhang Fan? Xiaohua sneered. Usually you've got so much backbone. Why are you acting like a coward now? He thought I was scared because I didn't snap back immediately. I looked at him, realizing he was basically a walking ATM delivering himself to my front door. What do you want to bet? I asked. Let's make it simple, Xiaohua said, glancing at Zhao Ying to make sure she was watching. We'll see who has the higher level by 8 o'clock tonight. If you lose, you get down on your knees in front of Zhao Ying and bark like a dog. You brave enough? I rolled my eyes. You think I'm an idiot? You want to hit on Zhao Ying? That's your business. Why should I be your stepping stone? Xiaohua's face flushed with anger. He didn't expect me to see through him so easily. What? Are you afraid, you F-rank piece of garbage? Afraid of a loser like you? I laughed. There's no need for that. Then prove it. Xiaohua barked. I'll bet, I said, leaning in with a smile. But you need to show some real sincerity. I don't work for free. Xiaohua grinned, thinking he had me trapped. Fine. If you win, I'll give you 10,000 gold coins. How's that? 10,000. I scoffed. Keep it for your lunch money. 10,000 is a gift, you ungrateful brat, one of his lackeys shouted. I ignored him and looked straight at Xiaohua. If you want to bet me, the stake is 500,000 gold coins. Minimum. The crowd gasped. 500,000 was a fortune, more than a normal person could save in a lifetime. You've got a big mouth, the other lackey yelled. Have you even seen 5,000 coins in your life? Whether I've seen it or not is none of your business, I said coldly. Are we betting, or are you just wasting my time? Move if you're scared. I knew Xiaohua couldn't back down now, not with everyone watching. He was desperate to impress Zhao Ying. Fine, Xiaohua screamed. 500,000 gold. It's a bet. But when you lose, you don't just bark. You're going to lick the dirt off all of our shoes. Deal, I said. 8 o'clock. Don't be late. I turned and walked toward the school's dungeon portal. Every high school had one so new students could practice their skills. Behind me, I heard them laughing. They called me a fool, a bottom-tier failure trying to outrun a B-rank practitioner. I didn't say a word. I just let them laugh. By tonight, I'd make them all shut up. I stepped into the shimmering light of the portal. A barrier wrapped around me, and a second later, the school square vanished. I was standing in the middle of a dense mountain forest. I summoned my bow and arrows, checking the perimeter. Once I was sure I was alone, I pulled up my status panel. Name, Zhang Fan. Level, 1. Constitution, 10. Agility, 10. Attack, 10. Defense, 10. HP, 100. MP, 100. It was the absolute bare minimum for a practitioner. I winced. If it weren't for the god-slaying Black Bolt doubling my attack and agility to 20, I wouldn't last 10 minutes in here. 20 wasn't enough to make me invincible, but it was enough to survive if I stayed sharp. I moved cautiously through the brush. Soon, a snow-white rabbit hopped into view. In school-controlled dungeons, a detection system automatically showed the stats of nearby monsters. Monster, Bucktooth Rabbit. Level, 1. HP 120. Attack 12. Defense 11. Agility 13. Every single one of its base stats was higher than mine. It was pathetic. No wonder people called F-rank archers trash. Without my element, this rabbit would have probably killed me. But things were different now. I raised my bow, pulled the string taut, and let an arrow fly. A jagged spark of black lightning danced along the shaft as it hissed through the air. The arrow tore through the air, heading straight for the bucktooth rabbit. It pierced the creature's body and slammed into the dirt, the energy dissipating slowly. Normally, if I faced a monster like this, I'd have to run or die. But as the rabbit's internal core released 20 points of vitality to heal the wound, its health bar dropped by 20 anyway. My god-slaying black bolt ignored defense entirely. I was dealing true damage, and the rabbit's hide offered it no protection at all. The rabbit let out a sharp cry of pain. Its eyes turned blood red as it charged at me like a maniac. I didn't panic. I pulled my bow and fired 2 more shots in rapid succession. Both hit home. Its health dropped by another 40 points. I just needed 3 more hits to finish it off. The rabbit was closing the distance fast. I didn't have time for another shot. I channeled the lightning into my feet and leaped backward, using my speed to create a gap. I felt like an arrow myself as I sprang onto a thick tree trunk. The moment I found my footing, I fired again. This time, the rabbit was ready. It twisted its body and dodged. I fired twice more, but only 1 arrow connected. The pain was finally too much for the creature. Instead of attacking, it turned tail and tried to run. I wasn't about to let my experience points walk away. I jumped down from the tree and gave chase. I waited for my moment, fired 3 precise shots, and emptied its health bar. The rabbit collapsed. My experience bar jumped by 10%. I spent the next hour and a half grinding. Finally, a golden light washed over me. I had reached level 2. A notification popped up. I had gained 10 attribute points from the level up, plus an extra 10 points stolen from the bucktooth rabbits. I looked at the notification and muttered to myself. The chance of getting extra attributes from kills was still way too low for my liking. If other practitioners knew I was complaining, they'd probably kill me out of pure envy. Most people only got the fixed 10 points per level. I was being greedy, but in this world, greed kept you alive. My new stats were balanced across the board. Strength, agility, spirit, everything was at 11. I had 20 points sitting in my pool. I didn't hesitate. I dumped every single point into attack. My base attack hit 31. With the god-slaying black bolt active, that number doubled to 62. That was comparable to the base attack of a level 6 combat class practitioner. I was going all in on a high damage build. Now that I was level 2, the real dungeon unlocked. I pushed my internal energy to the limit to trigger the entry requirement. A prompt appeared, asking if I wanted to enter the inner zone. I hit yes. A light breeze brushed past me. Everything looked the same, but the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt heavy, filled with a sharp, murderous intent that made my skin crawl. This was the real deal. Before I could even scout the area, I heard a rustle. A 2-meter-long snake was coiled in the grass, staring at me with cold, slitted eyes. Monster, green-scaled snake. Level 2. HP 240. Attack 24. Defense 17. Agility 17. It had a passive skill called Venom that drained 10 HP instantly and another 1% every second. I didn't wait for it to strike. I kicked off the ground and bolted, firing a distracting shot as I moved. I didn't expect to hit it. I just wanted to slow it down. The snake hissed, dodging the black lightning arrow by lunging onto a nearby branch. That was its mistake. As it landed, it was momentarily stationary. I fired my second arrow. The timing was perfect. The snake couldn't move. The arrow hit, and 62 points of damage vanished from its health bar. 1/4 of its life was gone in a single hit. The snake panicked. It realized it couldn't win and tried to slither away. If it had stayed and fought, it might have been a challenge. By running, it just became a target. 7 arrows later, the snake was dead. A notification flashed before my eyes. I had obtained the Venom skill. I couldn't believe my luck. The very first monster with a skill, and I'd managed to steal it. The damage wasn't world-breaking, and a healer could easily counter it, but it was my first skill. I learned it immediately. I walked over to the carcass. A small, transparent bead lay near the snake's head, an F-rank pendant that granted 5 points of spirit. I crushed the bead, and a green necklace appeared in my hand. It was carved with scales and felt like a real snake. The moment I put it on, a wave of coolness washed through my mind. My senses sharpened instantly. I closed my eyes and could feel the trajectory of the wind. I could hear a dry leaf falling yards away. I could even predict exactly where that leaf would land. With this kind of perception, I could probably kill a green-scaled snake in 5 hits instead of 7. My accuracy was going to be terrifying. I stayed in the dungeon for another hour, clearing out a dozen more monsters. I even managed to hunt down a level 3 beast, which gave me a massive boost in experience. Other than the levels, though, the rest of them didn't drop a thing. By the time I finished clearing the dungeon, I had reached level 3. The level up gave me 10 attribute points to distribute. I didn't hesitate. I put 5 points into spirit. After that fight with the snake, I realized how much spirit improved my perception and accuracy. I loved the feeling of being in total control, seeing every movement before it happened. I put the remaining 5 points into constitution. After half a day of fighting, I understood that my body was the foundation for everything. Strong attacks drained my stamina quickly, and if my constitution was too low, I wouldn't be able to last in a real fight. My overall combat power would drop if I hit my limit too soon. Once I finished assigning my points, I exited the dungeon. The hunger hit me immediately. Increasing my constitution had only made my stomach growl louder. As I stepped out, the midday sun blinded me for a second. I raised my hand to shield my eyes, waited for them to adjust, and then started walking toward the cafeteria. Holy crap, look at Zhang Fan. That loser actually hit level 3. I heard the shout from across the clearing. A group of students who had been swapping combat stories stopped and stared at me. No way. How? He's just an F-rank archer. How did he hit level 3 in less than half a day? Damn it. I'm a D-rank warrior, and I'm only at the peak of level 2. How is he ahead of me? The shock on their faces was priceless. But shock didn't mean respect. Most of them just looked angry. I bet he got lucky, one guy sneered. He probably found a high-quality experience bead. That's the only way a trash class could solo a dungeon that fast. That's it. He must have found a bead. What a waste of resources. A loser like him using a high-quality item is a crime against the school. They were practically foaming at the mouth with envy. Jealousy makes people ugly. I kept walking, but a shadow blocked my path. Zhang Fan, stop right there. It was Jin Shaohua. He looked furious, his face red as he glared at me. You loser, how dare you waste a high-quality experience bead? I frowned, looking him in the eye. What bead are you talking about? Stop acting. If you didn't use a bead, how are you level 3 already? I realized then that they had convinced themselves I cheated my way up. I didn't feel like explaining my hard work to these idiots, so I decided to lean into it. So what if I did? It's my loot. Why shouldn't I use it? The crowd erupted. I knew it. He really did waste it. What a tragedy. That could have gone to someone useful. They honestly believed that because I was F-rank, I shouldn't be allowed to use good items. In their minds, my property belonged to them. Shut the hell up. I snapped. The crowd went quiet. Yeah, I wasted it. So what? You want to know what it was? It was a C-rank experience bead. I used it. What are you going to do about it? I knew explaining the truth was useless. If they wanted to be jealous, I'd give them something to really be jealous about. A C-rank bead? Jin Shaohua stammered. That's impossible. If you used a C-rank bead, you'd be level 5 by now. Do I owe you an explanation? I said coldly. I pushed past him and headed for the cafeteria. Stop. Jin Shaohua jumped in front of me again. I don't care if it was C-rank or not. You wasted a high-quality resource. You owe us an apology. You owe the school an explanation. Are you sick in the head? I asked. It's my stuff. I use it how I want. Why would I give you an explanation? Zhang Fan, just because you found it doesn't mean you should use it, he said, puffing out his chest like he was a hero. For the honor of the school, you should have handed it over. High-quality resources should go to high-quality classes so our graduates can make a name for the school. You're being selfish. He was trying to take the moral high ground. It was pathetic. Oh, if it's for the school's honor, why haven't you donated anything, Jin Shaohua? I haven't found any high-quality loot yet. Then buy some and donate it. I countered. Your family is rich, right? Or are you just too stingy to care about the school's honor? He turned bright red, stuttering for a comeback. My dad's money is his. I'm an adult. I can't just ask him for. Zhang Fan, come here. A sharp voice cut through the argument. It was my class teacher, Chu Yinran. She looked at me with curiosity. I could tell she didn't believe the bead story for a second, but she wasn't going to let the circus continue. Teacher. Zhang Fan wasted a. Jin Xiaohua tried to tattle, but one look from Chu Yinran shut him up instantly. She turned and started walking away. I followed her, keeping a respectful distance of about 3 feet. A faint, elegant scent drifted from her, catching in the breeze. Every time I smelled that perfume, my heart rate seemed to pick up a little. We turned a corner into a quiet, secluded path. I thought she was leading me to her office, so I wasn't prepared when she suddenly stopped and turned around. I couldn't stop in time. I slammed right into her. It was soft, and very bouncy. You, Chu Yinren gasped. She hadn't expected me to walk right into her either. I'm sorry, Teacher Chu. I wasn't looking. My heart was racing like a wild horse. I scrambled back 2 steps, my face heating up. Chu Yinran was blushing furiously. She was a top-tier beauty, only 21 years old, and she clearly wasn't used to this kind of contact with a student. The blush made her look even more stunning. Suddenly, I felt a strange warmth in my nose. I reached up and wiped it with my hand. It was blood. My nose was bleeding. I stood there, blood dripping from my nose, looking like a total mess. Chu Yinren glared at me, her face a mix of embarrassment and genuine anger. If you dare tell anyone about what happened today, she hissed, her voice trembling slightly, I'll make your life a living hell. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel and hurried away, her pace much faster than usual. I stood there clumsily wiping the blood, feeling like an idiot. But as Chu Yinran walked further away, something strange happened to her. The image of my panicked face, frantically scrubbing at my nose, kept flashing in her mind. For some reason, she actually smiled. A strange flicker of excitement stirred in her heart. She touched her burning cheeks, feeling a wave of shyness she couldn't explain. I didn't know any of that. I just pinched my nose and bolted for the nearby bathroom to clean up. Unfortunately, Jin Xiaohua and his cronies saw me running past, face covered in red. Did the teacher actually hit him? One of them whispered, eyes wide. Probably not, another replied. She's strict, but she never gets physical. Zhang Fan must have really pissed her off by wasting that high-grade experience bead. She probably gave him a lesson he won't forget. Everyone assumed I had been punished. Only I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to share it. By the afternoon, I had eaten my fill and recovered my strength. I headed back into the dungeon. I didn't want to waste time in the level 2 zone anymore. I pushed straight into level 3 territory, inching closer to the boundaries where level 4 beasts roamed. Higher levels meant more experience. It was a simple calculation. Asterisk swish. Swish, asterisk. I fired 2 arrows in rapid succession at a level 3 prairie wolf. Both hit their mark. Since my mental power had increased, my ability to predict a beast's movement had become terrifyingly precise. I knew exactly where they would be before they even moved. I fired, stepped back to maintain distance, and let another arrow fly. It pierced the wolf right between the eyes. For a split second, the essence core inside the wolf flared with life, healing its wounds instantly. The arrow vanished, but the wolf didn't slow down. It lunged at me with bared teeth. I spun my body, narrowly dodging the snap of its jaws, and fired one last shot point blank. That did it. The wolf slumped to the ground, dead. Suddenly, a chorus of howls erupted from the shadows. Oh, whoa. My heart sank. I remembered what the teachers always said, wolves are pack animals. If you see one, there are dozens more nearby. I guess I should have paid more attention in class. I looked around and realized the woods were crawling with movement. They were closing in. I was surrounded. I leaped up, planting my foot against a tree trunk and scrambling onto a high branch. From my vantage point, I could see dozens of gray shapes moving through the brush. It was strange. Prairie wolves usually avoided the forest. Why were they here? I tried to jump to another tree, hoping to escape through the canopy. I didn't have the confidence to face a whole pack of level 3 beasts, especially if a level 4 Wolf King was leading them. Asterisk swish. 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 Asterisk. Sharp blades of wind sliced through the air, coming from the mouths of the wolves below. Asterisk crack. Crash. Asterisk. In an instant, the branches around me were shredded to splinters. The sheer force of the wind blades forced me back down to the ground. I was trapped. I didn't panic. My hands moved on instinct. I started firing arrows as fast as I could. By the time the pack closed the gap, I had already taken one down. But there were 22 of them left. That was more than enough to tear me to pieces. A notification popped up in my vision. I had looted a skill from the first wolf, Windblade. It gave me a 5% boost to attack speed and 12 points of extra attack power. I didn't hesitate. I learned it instantly. My attack power was already at 63. With the 10 points from my venom and this new 12-point boost, I was hitting for 85 damage per arrow. A prairie wolf had 300 HP. 3 arrows would deal 255 damage, and my venom's corrosion would tick for about 9 points of damage every second. In 5 seconds, the venom would finish them off. The problem was, 22 wolves wouldn't give me 5 seconds to wait around. A crazy idea flashed through my mind. It was a long shot, but I had no other choice. I sprinted forward and leaped, landing right on the back of the nearest wolf. The pack froze. They were stunned by the sheer audacity of it. The wolves that were preparing to spit wind blades at me had to swallow their attacks to avoid hitting their own pack mate. The Wolf King let out a furious howl from the rear. Forced to abandon their ranged attacks, the wolves lunged at me with claws and teeth. This was exactly what I wanted. I was faster than the wolves, but I wasn't faster than their wind magic. Now that they were forced into melee, I had a chance. I didn't stay on one wolf for long. I used my speed to jump from back to back, firing arrows as I moved. I wasn't just shooting randomly. I hit each wolf exactly 3 times. No more, no less. I hopped across the pack like a stone skipping across a pond. Eventually, to make sure none of them ran away, I tagged every single wolf until they were all one shot away from death. Then, I started finishing them off. 3 minutes later, 22 prairie wolves lay dead at my feet. If anyone heard that a level 3 F-rank archer had wiped out a pack of 22 level 3 beasts without taking a single scratch, they'd call me a liar. Even a level 5 SSS rank professional would struggle to do it that fast. Those 3 minutes felt like 3 days. Every second required absolute focus. One slip, one missed jump, and I would have been dead. My body was at its limit. Sweat poured down my face, soaking my shirt completely. I couldn't even think about resting yet. I dragged my exhausted limbs around the clearing, scooping up all the loot the wolves had dropped. Once my pockets were full, I immediately exited the dungeon. I was spent. If even a weak beast showed up now, I wouldn't be able to fight back. The entrance was quiet since most students were still deep inside. I stumbled toward a patch of shade and collapsed against a tree, gasping for air. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold shiver of fear as I realized how close I had come to dying. I couldn't keep doing this. I needed to get stronger and fast. I made a mental note to study beast habits the moment I had free time. I used to think theory was useless, but today proved how wrong I was. One wrong assumption could have cost me my life. However, the risk had paid off in a massive way. I reached into my pocket and pulled out 5 glowing loot beads. I crushed the first one, and a silver ring materialized on my finger. It was a storage ring, Earth grade, with 100 cubic meters of space. That alone was a huge win. The next few beads were even better. I found a pair of breeze boots that added 12 to my movement speed, and 2 breeze swords, both Earth grade, which granted 12 attack power and 10 attack speed. Finally, I pulled out a piece of wolfskin light armor, a C-rank item that boosted my defense by 19. I immediately equipped the ring, but I hesitated on the rest. I didn't need the swords, and while the boots were good, I was planning on a full glass cannon build. I needed raw power more than defense right now. I did the math in my head. These 4 items could easily fetch 100,000 gold coins on the market. For me, that was a fortune. It was enough to buy a high-quality C-rank bow. The jump in power between D-rank and C-rank gear was massive, and that's exactly what I needed. Before moving, I pulled up my status panel to check my progress. Name, Zhang Fan. Level 4. My experience was sitting at 1.2%. My spirit and physique had both climbed to 18.8, and my base attack was now 35.3. Most importantly, I had 20 unassigned attribute points. I had leveled up during the chaos of the fight, and killing the Wolf King had granted me a 10-point bonus. I stared at those 20 points, weighing my options. Spirit would improve my perception and help me predict enemy movements. Physique would give me the stamina to stay in the fight longer. But attack and agility were the core of an archer. After a moment of silence, I made my choice. I put 5 points into spirit, 5 into physique, and dumped the remaining 10 into agility. I could feel the change instantly. Before, it took me over a second to fire a single arrow. Now, I could easily fire 1 shot per second, maybe more. As for attack power, I'd let a new bell handle that. I stood up and headed straight for the school's resource exchange center. Meanwhile, back in the school's monitoring hall, the atmosphere was tense. Every teacher, including the principal, was staring at the leaderboard. "Teacher Chu, how many students named Zhang Fan do you have in your class?" One teacher whispered, his voice trembling. Chu Yinran looked at the screen. At the very top of the rankings sat Zhang Fan, level 4. It was impossible. In the history of our school, no one had ever reached level 4 on their awakening day. The record was level 3 at 75% experience. It had only been 4 hours, and the student everyone called a loser had just shattered the school record. I heard he got a high-grade experience bead," Chu Yinran stammered. As she spoke, she couldn't help but remember when I had crashed into her arms earlier, and a faint blush crept up her neck. Luck then," the other teacher said, trying to ease the shock. "Well, luck is a part of strength, I suppose." Half an hour later, I walked out of the exchange center. I had sold the swords, the boots, and the armor. In their place, I carried the Thunderbolt bow. It was a C-rank weapon that added 17 to my attack and gave me a 5% crit chance. When I returned to the dungeon entrance, a crowd of students was waiting for their timers to reset. In this trial, you don't actually die, but the pain of being mauled is very real. If you die, you're kicked out for an hour and lose all the experience you gained in that run. As I approached, a boy pointed at me, his jaw dropping. "Wait, am I seeing things? Is that loser level 4? No way. Did he find another experience bead? How is this fair?" Another student groaned. "I'm a B-rank class, and I'm barely level 3. He's a garbage F-rank. The world is broken." I ignored the jealous whispers and walked up to the dungeon portal. But I didn't select the normal mode. I tapped the screen and switched it to assessment mode. The crowd went silent. "What is he doing?" someone gasped. "Is he entering the assessment?" Assessment mode was different. It tracked your performance, scored your efficiency, and if you scored above a 60, you earned the legal right to leave the city and hunt beasts in the wild. It was a requirement for every professional, but the difficulty was tuned for level 5 players. I pressed my finger against the word assessment, and a pillar of white light engulfed me. "He's insane," a student whispered as I disappeared. "He's only level 4. Does he even know how hard that mode is?" No one was laughing anymore. They were just confused. And somewhere in the back of the crowd, Jin Xiaohua looked like he had seen a ghost. If I actually pulled this off, he owed me 50,000 gold coins. I doubted he even had that much. Back in the monitoring hall, a screen that had been dark for hours suddenly flickered to life, tracking my every move. A flash of white light erupted in the monitoring hall, signaling that someone had entered the assessment dungeon. "This is ridiculous," the dean of students barked, his face darkening. "Who is it? Who entered the assessment? Pull up the feed immediately. I want to see which student is so arrogant they think they can ignore the rules of heaven and earth." He looked around the room, his voice rising in a roar. "I don't care whose student this is. Your entire class's bonuses and subsidies for the year are canceled. Is this how you teach them?" I didn't know it, but the dean had a good reason to be furious. Running a standard dungeon used low-grade essence stones. The school could afford those. But the assessment dungeon required a level 5 perfect grade essence stone. Those were incredibly rare and considered vital strategic resources. In the dean's eyes, whoever just stepped into that portal was throwing away a fortune for a suicide mission. The screens flickered, and my image appeared. The room went silent. "Wait, is that Zhang Fan?" A substitute teacher from class 3 to 7 stammered. "And that bow in his hand, is that a C-rank thunderstorm bow?" That thing costs nearly 90,000 gold coins. Where did he get the money for gear like that? I was oblivious to the chaos I was causing in the monitoring hall. I stood in the middle of a dense forest where the trees were so thick it would take 3 grown men to circle one with their arms. I gripped the frame of the thunderstorm bow with my left hand and hooked my fingers around the string. As I pulled back, a flash of lightning flickered behind me, and an arrow materialized from my quiver, resting against the wood. I let go. Boom. The arrow, wrapped in crackling black lightning, tore through the air. It slammed into a massive tree trunk, punching a hole 50 centimeters wide clean through the center. A critical hit. I blinked, surprised by the raw power. My base attack was 35.3. With the doubling effect from my Oblivion Thunder, it should have been 70.6. Adding the 10 points from my Venom, 12 from Windblade, and 17 from the bow itself, my total damage should have been around 109.6. But that shot? That was way beyond 110. Was a 5% crit rate really that easy to trigger? I decided to test it. I pulled the string again and fired a second shot. Boom. Another critical hit. It was just as devastating as the first. I stood there, slightly stunned. I fired 3 more times in rapid succession. Asterisk boom, 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 asterisk. Every single one was a crit. Are you kidding me? I muttered. 5% chance, and I'm hitting 100%. I wondered if it was because of the Oblivion Thunder. I tried firing a regular shot without activating the lightning skill. The arrow whistled through the air and thudded into a tree, the tail vibrating. It was a solid hit, but no explosion, no massive hole. No crit. As soon as I stopped, the arrow transformed back into lightning and returned to my quiver. I grinned. So that was it. The Oblivion Thunder didn't just boost my damage. It guaranteed a critical hit every single time. I had only meant to get used to the new bow, but I'd stumbled onto something broken. The assessment dungeon was straightforward. One path, one goal. I walked about 50 meters before the first enemy appeared. It was a level 5 goblin. It stood 2 meters tall, looking down at me with 500 health points, 23 attack, and 15 defense. For a normal level 5 player, killing this thing would be a grueling hour-long grind. For me at level 4, it was a matter of seconds. I fired. The arrow hit the goblin square in the chest, dealing 219.2 damage and knocking the creature 2 meters back. It scrambled to its feet, roaring and waving a wooden club as its natural regeneration tried to close the wound. I didn't give it the chance. I fired 2 more shots in a blur. The first stopped its charge, and the second tore a gaping hole through its upper body. It collapsed, dead. I kept moving. 50 meters later, another goblin appeared. This one was slightly stronger, 510 health, and its stats were all up by 1 point. To anyone else, that slight bump in difficulty might have been a problem. To me, it was irrelevant. 3 arrows later, it was dust. Back in the monitoring hall, the teachers were losing their minds. "How is this happening?" one shouted. "Someone tell me what I'm looking at." A level 4 taking down level 5s was a feat reserved for legendary geniuses. But here was an F-rank archer, the bottom of the barrel, dropping level 5 goblins in 3 shots. "It looks like he's hitting a critical strike with every single arrow," a 50-year-old teacher said, adjusting his glasses in disbelief. "That's impossible. The thunderstorm bow only has a 5% crit rate," another argued. "And even if he could crit every time, his base stats shouldn't be that high. Where did he get that bow? Did he cheat? Did it drop in the dungeon?" The room fell into a stunned silence. They had no answers. Outside the dungeon entrance, a crowd of students had gathered. Word had spread that I'd hit level 4 and entered the assessment. Most of them were just waiting for me to die so they could laugh when I got kicked out. "It's been 2 minutes," someone muttered, checking their watch. "Why hasn't he been killed yet?" "He's probably just hiding in the safe zone," another sneered. "He's too scared to actually fight the targets." A level 4 trying to pass the assessment? It's a joke. Even the geniuses at high school number 1 wouldn't dare try this at level 4. "I don't know." A student who also played the archer class spoke up. "I saw him go in with a C-rank thunderstorm bow. That's 17 extra attack points. If he plays it slow and kites the slower mobs, he might actually have a chance." "Shut up," a boy nearby snapped. A C-rank weapon is 100,000 gold. Where would he get that kind of money? The school forbids using family money for gear, and even if they didn't, Zhang Fan's family is broke. There's no way. Believe what you want, the archer student shrugged. My uncle works at the exchange counter. He's the one who sold that bow to the school after it dropped from a beast he killed. I saw it. I know that bow. It's definitely the thunderstorm. The boy spoke with absolute certainty, and the crowd erupted. Holy crap, someone shouted. So Zhang Fan really did buy C-rank gear? Another student slapped his thigh like he'd just solved a grand mystery. I knew a piece of trash like him couldn't hit level 4 this fast. He's cheating. The mood turned sour fast. This isn't right, a guy yelled. I'm going to report him. And I'm going to find whoever gave him the gold to cheat. We need to drag them out. The crowd started chanting in agreement. Yeah, let's go to the principal. We can't let these pests ruin the fairness of the trial. Why does he get to cheat his way to level 4 while we're stuck at level 2? It's an insult to everyone playing by the rules. Let's go? Just then, Jin Xiaohua stepped out of the dungeon. He looked exhausted, but when he heard the gossip, he froze. He grabbed a nearby student by the collar, his face pale. Are you sure? You're sure Zhang Fan hit level 4? Out of everyone there, Jin Xiaohua was the one who couldn't accept this. He knew exactly how much strength he had. He knew he wouldn't hit level 4 today. If Zhang Fan really reached it, I would win the bet, and he would owe me 500,000 gold. That was a fortune. If his father found out he lost that much money to a loser like me, he'd break both of his legs. Of course I'm sure. The student snapped, pulling away. I saw him enter the assessment dungeon with my own eyes. How could it be fake? Jin Xiaohua's face turned ugly. Damn it. He's shameless. He's actually cheating just to beat me. He looked around frantically, searching for Zhaoying. He wanted her to use the Zhao family's influence to pressure the school. If they could prove I cheated, or if the school allowed everyone to use family money for gear, he wouldn't lose. He couldn't stand the thought of being inferior to me, even if it was because of a supposed cheat. But Zhaoying was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, I was focused. I had already cleared 5 waves of goblins. If I finished the one in front of me, I'd pass the assessment. The goblins were getting stronger, but for me, they were still easy. The target before me was a level 5 elite goblin. It had 550 HP, 28 attack, and 30 defense. But then it activated a skill, bronze skin and iron bones. Its defense spiked by 22 points, bringing it to a total of 52. For most level 5 players, 52 defense was an unbreakable wall. Most attackers at this level only had around 40 base attack. Even with strong skills, breaking 50 was nearly impossible without high-end gear. If they didn't have a good weapon, they could hit this goblin all day and not leave a scratch. But to me, this desperate situation was nothing. I didn't just have high attack. I ignored defense entirely. That bronze skin skill was a joke in front of me. Asterisk swoosh. 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 Asterisk. 3 arrows flew. The goblin instinctively triggered its defense skill after the first hit, but it didn't matter. My 3-arrow death law was absolute. Back in the monitoring room, the teachers lost their minds. When the arrows hit, the damage numbers popped up, minus 219.2. What is going on? One teacher gasped. Is this kid using a hack? The goblin had 52 defense, yet I was still dealing the exact same 219.2 damage I had been dealing to targets with 0 defense. It was impossible. It was a universal law that higher defense meant lower damage taken. I was shattering that law right in front of them. They stared at the screen, questioning everything they knew about the world. I didn't know about their shock, and I didn't care. After the 6th goblin fell, a notification popped up. I had looted its skill, bronze skin and iron bones. A defensive skill was exactly what I needed. My luck was on fire today. I learned the skill immediately and checked the loot drop. It was an earth-grade iron staff, useless for an archer. I tossed it into my storage ring and moved on. Wave 7. 3 arrows, dead. Wave 8. 3 arrows, dead. Wave 9. 3 arrows, dead. Then, I reached the end of the path. A massive, 3-meter-tall goblin appeared. It was covered in glowing golden light and clad in heavy iron armor. I checked its stats and blinked. Level 5 boss goblin. HP, 700. Base defense, 40. Armor defense, 52. Skill defense, 37. Total defense, 129. Is this thing a freak? I muttered. I remembered the textbooks saying the final beast wasn't this strong. Maybe I hadn't studied hard enough. I felt a bit of regret for skipping class, but then I looked at my skills. Good thing I have my god-slaying lightning. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. What I didn't know was that the textbooks were right. The boss shouldn't have been this strong. The principal of high school number 5 had personally ordered the staff to swap the boss for a B-rank level 5 goblin and equipped it with a full set of armor just to test me. He had turned a bronze-level boss into a king-level nightmare. Over 100 defense, the principal whispered to himself, staring at the screen. Let's see if you can still deal full damage now. Every teacher in the room was glued to the monitor. Some were curious, but many were secretly hoping I'd fail, or at least see my damage drop by a fraction of a point. My performance was making them feel an inexplicable pressure. Only 2 people were rooting for me: the principal, who wanted a star student, and my class teacher, Chu Yanran. If I succeeded, Chu Yanran would receive a massive bonus. But knowing her, the money wasn't the main point. She was watching the screen with an intensity one couldn't see, her eyes fixed on my every move. There was something about the way I pulled my bow, a rhythm to my actions, that she found captivating. She'd been at this school for a year and never noticed me. Now, she couldn't look away. I didn't know any of that. I just stood there, calm and focused, aiming my bow at the massive goblin boss. Whiz. The arrow tore through the air. The teachers in the observation room held their breath, eyes glued to the monitor. The projectile pierced straight through the goblin's chest, leaving a gaping red hole. But monsters don't have vital organs like humans. Their core simply pumps out energy to heal the wound instantly. They only die when their HP hits 0. A number popped up above the boss's head, 219.2. The teachers gasped. Even with that massive armor, I was still dealing full damage. They expected it, but seeing it was different. It felt impossible. The goblin let out a deafening roar. A brilliant golden light erupted from its body, coating it in a shimmering aura. It was its ultimate skill, Golden Shield. Its defense was now maxed out. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. I pulled the string of my thunderstorm bow to its limit. I let go. The arrow whistled, cutting a path through the wind. 10 meters. 5 meters. 1 meter. The teachers stopped breathing. Thud. 219.2. How is this possible? One teacher shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. It's not scientific. How is he still doing full damage? The room descended into chaos. My performance hadn't just broken the boss's defense, it had broken their minds. They wanted answers. They wanted to see me in person to find out what kind of monster I really was. Outside the monitoring hall, a different kind of chaos was brewing. Jin Xiaohua and a group of students had gathered, shouting and waving their arms. Quiet. A teacher named Su barked, stepping out to meet them. Why aren't you practicing? What are you doing here? Teacher Su, we're here to report a cheater. Jin Xiaohua stepped forward, his face red with indignation. He felt he was in the right, so he didn't back down. Someone is using outside funds to buy high-level gear. It's a violation of school and national rules. The rule existed for a reason. The government wanted to see a student's true potential under fair conditions before they were sent into the deadly wilderness. If you relied on bot power in a safe dungeon, you'd die the moment you faced a real monster. Teacher Su already knew who they were talking about. Honestly, he wanted to report me too. My stats were so ridiculous he figured I had to be hacking the system. It's Zhang Fan. Jin Xiaohua yelled. He bought C-rank equipment worth 80 or 90,000 coins. He's cheating. We want him punished. The principal stepped out of the hall, his expression unreadable. You claim he took outside funding. Do you have proof? The gear is the proof. Jin Xiaohua argued. We've been in here for 5 hours. A team of 1 B rank and 4 C ranks hasn't even made 30,000 coins. How does an F rank trash like him get 90,000? He's cheating, principal. Punish him. The crowd took up the cry. Punish Zhang Fan. Reject cheaters. The principal raised his hands to quiet them. The school takes these reports seriously. We will go to the dungeon exit and meet Zhang Fan ourselves to see what's going on. Deep down, the principal knew I didn't need to cheat. He'd seen my skills. But he was curious. He couldn't legally probe my private character sheet, so he decided to use this investigation as an excuse to get a closer look at my secrets. "Thank you, Principal," the students cheered. They couldn't handle the gap between us. Yesterday, I was the bottom of the class. Today, I was leaving them in the dust. They needed me to be a cheater so they could feel better about themselves. While they were marching toward me, I was finishing the job. The goblin boss collapsed, and a golden light washed over me. I had reached level 5. The loot was incredible. The boss dropped 7 items, and the worst among them was C rank. I picked up a B rank goblin shield, a B rank warhammer, and a C rank soft armor. In the outside market, these would easily fetch over 1,000,000 gold coins. Low-level monsters usually drop trash, but boss drops were a gold mine. Along with the gear, I gained 20 attribute points from the boss and 10 from leveling up. 30 points to spend. I put 5 into Constitution and 5 into Spirit. The remaining 20 I split between attack and agility. I didn't touch my defense. I already had a plan for that, something that would give me a massive boost without wasting points. In my mind, the best defense was simple: hit harder, move faster, and never let them touch me in the first place. I had no intention of wasting my hard-earned attribute points on useless stats. After finalizing my build, I exited the dungeon instance. The moment my silhouette flickered into view at the entrance, the crowd erupted. Someone pointed a finger at me and screamed, "Zhang Fan. Confess right now. If you're honest, we might go easy on you. But if you resist, it'll be worse." "Zhang Fan, you're pathetic," another voice chimed in. "It's one thing to be a bad student, but your character is absolute trash. You're a disgrace to this high school." I hadn't even fully recovered from the dizzying sensation of the teleportation before the accusations hit me like a wave. I looked at the angry faces surrounding me and frowned. "Do you guys have a problem? You're despicable." Jin Xiaohua stepped forward, his eyes filled with pure disdain. "Just to beat me, you actually cheated." "I cheated." I let out a cold laugh. "When exactly did I do that? Or is it just that you can't afford to lose and want to back out of our bet?" "Huh. A piece of trash like you beating me? You're dreaming," he spat. "Well, I'm level 5 now," I said calmly. "What about you?" His face turned bright red, then pale. "You? Zhang Fan, what's there to be proud of? If I cheated, I'd be level 10 by now." "You keep saying I cheated, Jin Xiaohua. Where's the proof?" "Proof? Do you dare to say you didn't buy C-rank equipment with outside money?" I looked at him like he was an idiot. "Is there a school rule saying I can't own C-rank gear?" "Don't play dumb. Students aren't allowed to use outside funds to buy gear for trials. Don't tell me you didn't know that." "I know the rule," I replied, "but I didn't use outside money." Jin Xiaohua burst out laughing. "At least try to make your lies believable. If you didn't use outside money, where did a loser like you get the cash for C-rank items?" "My money came from the loot I dropped inside the dungeon. I traded it." "You? An F-rank trash archer dropping gear good enough to trade for C-rank equipment? Do you think we're all stupid?" He sneered, stepping closer. "You have 0 combat power." "Are you questioning my combat power now?" I asked. "What power? Without that gear, you're nothing but a complete waste of space." I smiled. I had wanted to punch Jin Xiaohua for a long time. Back then, I was alone and he had his pack of lapdogs, so I stayed quiet. Now, the opportunity was served on a silver platter. "In that case, why don't we step into a dungeon and settle this?" "Zhang Fan, you have no shame." One of Jin Xiaohua's lackeys barked. "You cheated your way to level 5, and now you want to challenge Brother Hua who's only level 3? Where's your dignity?" "Don't worry," I said, my voice dripping with confidence. "I won't bully you. I won't use any equipment at all. And you can all come at me together." The crowd gasped. "What? He wants to take on a whole team by himself? He's delusional. He thinks being level 5 makes him invincible. He's still a bad student," a guy whispered loudly. "At level 5, he only has about 40 free attribute points. Even if he put everything into attack, his damage would be around 55. A tank could soak up one hit, and the rest of the team would delete him instantly." The teachers stood by, watching in silence. They usually didn't interfere with student squabbles, especially since dueling in a controlled instance was safe. "You're arrogant, Zhang Fan," Jin Xiaohua shouted. "Since you're looking for death, don't blame us." He wasn't about to turn down a chance to gang up on me, especially since he was secretly worried about my new level. "Stop talking. Get in, I said, turning back toward the portal. I entered instance room 4203. Jin Xiaohua and his 4 teammates followed immediately. Outside, a teacher pulled out a laptop and projected the feed onto a large screen in the air. But before the crowd could even look at the screen, they froze. One by one, Jin Xiaohua's teammates started reappearing at the dungeon exit, looking completely dazed. Inside the dungeon, I hadn't wasted a single second. I didn't use my thunderstorm bow, which meant no critical hits and a lower attack stat. My attack power sat around 110. Jin Xiaohua's friends had about 150 health each. It took me exactly 2 arrows to drop each person. With my speed, I was firing 3 arrows every 2 seconds. Their defense meant nothing to me. Their fastest member only had 27 agility. I had 35.6, and my attack speed was boosted even higher. To them, I was a blur. In less than 6 seconds, 4 of them were gone. The people outside were stunned. It was too fast. They hadn't even been in there long enough for the teleportation sickness to wear off. When the crowd finally looked at the projection, their jaws dropped. Jin Xiaohua was still inside, but he wasn't fighting. He was being kicked around like a stray dog. Literally, I had dismissed my summoned bow and was just using my feet. With my constitution at 31, my physical strength was immense. Sending a 100-pound teenager flying was effortless. Every time he was about to hit the ground, I blurred to his landing spot and kicked him back into the air. I controlled my strength perfectly, keeping him alive just to humiliate him. I kicked him 50 times before his health finally hit 0, and the system booted him out. Zhang Fan, I'm not done with you. Jin Xiaohua screamed as he materialized at the exit. He was shaking with rage and shame. He had never been beaten like this in his life, and knowing the whole school saw the projection made him want to crawl into a hole and die. I stepped out of the portal and scanned the crowd. Anyone else want to question my combat power? The people who had been shouting the loudest suddenly found their shoes very interesting. They couldn't even look me in the eye. The principal finally cleared his throat. All right, that's enough. Everyone, get back to leveling. You should all learn from Zhang Fan. He just passed the evaluation dungeon with an SSS rank rating. You need to work harder. The evaluation ranking usually went from 0 to 100. But if a true genius appeared, principals would swap the final boss for something much stronger, allowing for S, SS, or the legendary SSS rank. No one mentioned cheating anymore. If I could do that to a team without wearing a single piece of gear, the answer was obvious. An SSS rating. Someone whispered. The highest in the history of Jiangzhou City was only an S rank. Is this what a waste looks like? If he's a waste, another student muttered, then what the hell are we? The atmosphere in the square shifted instantly. Nobody looked at me with envy anymore, and the mockery was gone. All I saw in their eyes was disbelief and a flicker of begrudging respect. I looked over at Jin Xiaohua. He was still trembling, his face a messy blur of rage and confusion. Jin Xiaohua, I said, my voice calm and flat. Are you going to give me my 500,000 gold now, or should I come find you tonight? He gritted his teeth so hard I thought they might shatter. Zhang Fan, he hissed, spitting my name like a curse. What? I tilted my head. Do you actually think you'll have a better chance of beating me by tonight? You. His face turned a deep, bruised purple. He looked like he wanted to lunge across the clearing and bite me, but the memory of those 50 kicks held him back. He knew he wasn't my match. Not even close. Fine, he barked. He pulled out his phone and scanned the transfer code. I watched the notification pop up. 500,000 gold deposited. He had just maxed out his credit cards to pay me. I knew his parents were going to skin him alive when he got home, but that wasn't my problem. Nearby, Chu Yanran watched the whole exchange. She had always thought I was just a quiet, boring loner. Now, her expression told me she realized I was something much more dangerous. Zhang Fan, come with me, the principal said, breaking the silence once the transaction was done. I followed him back to his private office. We sat down, and for a moment, he just stared at me, trying to reconcile the F-rank archer he knew with the monster he'd just seen in the dungeon. Zhang Fan, he started, his voice low. Can you explain how your combat power is, well, like that? I shrugged. To be honest, principal, I'm not really sure myself. I wasn't about to tell him the truth. In this world, your specific skill details are your life. If you reveal your trump cards, people will find a way to counter them. Keeping my mouth shut was the only way to stay alive. The principal nodded, not pushing it. He understood the rules of survival. I have to report your results. Since you passed with an SSS rating, you'll be required to enter the ancient battlefield soon. You'll be training and fighting for your life against professionals from other countries. He paused, looking serious. I don't know much about the battlefield myself, but once you finish, every major faction will be hunting for you. The country will be watching you closely too. Do you have a plan for your future? I leaned back in the chair. Honestly, Principal Liu? No, I don't have a plan. I wasn't lying. A few days ago, I thought I was just another drop of water in the ocean, destined to disappear into history without a sound. Then the extinction lightning awakened, and everything changed. I hadn't had time to think about a career. Don't rush it, Liu said. Focus on leveling up for the ancient battlefield. But let me give you some advice. If people try to recruit you, be careful. I'd suggest joining the military or the bureau. If you join a private group, your talent will make you a target for their rivals. He didn't mention anything about hiding my talent from foreign spies. In our country, we didn't fear cowards hiding in the shadows. I understand. Thanks for the heads up, I said. Here, take this. He handed me a sleek, high-tech watch. It wasn't a normal timepiece. It was an official device for hunters, equipped with monster identification, satellite comms, and advanced mapping. Every student who passed the evaluation got one for free. I thanked him and left the school grounds immediately. I didn't go home. I hailed a taxi and headed straight for Wanbao Pavilion. Wanbao Pavilion sat in the heart of Jiangzhou's busiest district. It was a 7-story hub for buying and selling gear, packed with dozens of shops on every floor. I knew the place well. I used to wander through here when I was bored, dreaming of gear I couldn't afford. I bypassed the first floor and went straight to the second. I had a specific target in mind. Months ago, I'd seen a skill book in one of the stalls, and I hadn't been able to stop thinking about it. I walked up to the counter. Boss, let me see that armor condensation art. The shopkeeper's eyes lit up like he'd just won the lottery. His son had found that skill on a mission last year, but it was notoriously useless. It required the user to manifest armor using their own internal energy. Most fighters saw that as a waste. Why burn your combat energy on defense when you could just buy physical armor? You sure, kid? The boss asked, already pulling up the file on his computer. Let me look at the specs first, I said, playing it cool to keep the price down. He pulled up the description. Armor condensation art. Manifests armor using the user's energy. Quality and strength depend on the quality of the user's energy source. It was exactly what I remembered. Boss, I remember you were giving this away for free a few months ago, right? Ah, well. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. That was a promotion. If you spent 300,000 gold, you got it for free. But now, he looked me over. I was wearing my school uniform, which was a bit too small and starting to fade. I didn't look like I had 2 cents to my name. He didn't want to scare me off with a high price for a skill no one wanted, but he didn't want to give it away either. 5,000 gold, he said, holding up 5 fingers. Too high, I countered. Give me a real price so you can actually get this off your shelf. He sighed, looking defeated. Fine. 3,000. I can't go lower. Just remember me next time you need something. I paid the 3,000, and he handed me a small glowing orb. I crushed it instantly. A cluster of light floated before my eyes, displaying the prompt. Armor condensation art. Learn? I tapped learn, and the light surged into my forehead. Condense, I thought. Instantly, a set of pitch-black armor materialized over my skin. Dark arcs of electricity crackled across the surface, humming with power. I closed my eyes and pulled up my status window to see exactly what I had become. I stared at my status window, my heart racing as I read through the details. I was an F-rank archer, the lowest of the low. But my hidden skill changed everything. I could loot skills and attributes from anything I killed. My primary element was Nirvana God Thunder, which ignored all defenses and boosted my attack and agility by 100%. I looked at my list of looted skills. Venom, Windblade, Bronze Skin Iron Bones, and now, the Nirvana Armor. The Venom skill dealt direct damage and drained 1% of a target's health every second. Windblade gave me a massive speed and attack boost. Bronze skin iron bones added a flat 22 points to my defense. But it was the Nirvana armor that left me speechless. It ignored all incoming attacks. Every 10 points of damage I took would only consume 1 point of my energy. I had over 140 energy points, which meant I could tank over 1,400 points of damage without taking a scratch. That was the base defense of a level 30 professional. If I kept dumping attribute points into my energy, I would eventually become unkillable. Best of all, it triggered automatically. No one could ever ambush me again. 3,000 gold. This was the biggest steal of my life. Little brother, your armor. The shop owner stared at me, his face pale. He looked like he was suffocating. He told me later that just looking at the black scales made him feel like his soul was being erased. Not crushed, not broken, just wiped out of existence by an invisible force. Boss, let's talk business, I said, snapping him out of it. Give me 10 energy restoratives, 3 healing potions, and 3 antidotes. I needed to be prepared. Tomorrow, I was heading outside the city walls to hunt monsters. My goal was to complete my first job transition within 2 days. I couldn't wait to see what kind of specialized skill I'd awaken next. After leaving the shop, I headed to the 7th floor of the building to the Wanbao auction house. I had high-quality loot from the goblin boss, and I wasn't going to settle for street prices. I handed over 3 B-rank items and 4 C-rank items. The manager's eyes nearly popped out of his head. C-rank gear was rare, but B-rank gear for low-level players was practically non-existent. He treated me like royalty, promising to send the B-rank items to the headquarters in Kyoto for a massive auction. The rest would be sold locally in Jiangzhou. With the school graduation coming up, wealthy families would be desperate to gear up their kids for the dangerous trials outside the city. I was going to be rich. I took the bus back to the southeast corner of Jiangzhou, navigating through the cramped, 7-story apartment blocks until I reached my unit. It was 6 p.m. The moment I opened the door, the smell of home-cooked food hit me. My father, Zhang Jingguo, was sitting on the sofa scrolling through his phone, while my mother, Li Yue, brought out the plates. They had prepared garlic sprouts with pork, braised pork, eggplant, and spicy potato shreds. A feast. Xiao Fan, you're back, my dad said with a grin. I've got good news. I found you a job at my company. You'll just be registering cargo. It's stable, easy work. My mom nodded, smiling warmly. Eat up and sleep early. You need to report for duty tomorrow morning before someone else takes the spot. They didn't ask about my awakening results. They probably assumed I had failed or ended up with a useless class and didn't want to hurt my feelings. Mom, Dad, I said, serving them rice. I'm going outside the city to hunt monsters tomorrow. Sure. My mom replied, not really listening. After you report for work, you can go wherever you want. I'll even give you 1,000 gold to spend. My dad leaned back, sighing dramatically. Must be nice. Your mom gives you 1,000 gold for a day, and I only get 100 for the whole month. I'm a tragic man. My mom kicked his shin, and we all laughed. But then, I pulled out my phone. Here, use this for whatever you need, I said, tapping the screen. Ding. My dad's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then froze. Wait, how much is this? 40,000? No, for 100,000 gold. His eyes went wide as he counted the zeros. My mom dropped her chopsticks. Xiao Fan, where did you get this kind of money? Did you do something illegal? I earned it, I said calmly, placing the rice in front of them. Earned it? Doing what? My mom looked terrified. My dad finally looked at me closely, sensing the power radiating off my body. You are your level 5? How is that possible? What class did you awaken? I'm an archer, I told them. I passed the graduation trial early. The school will be sending a bonus soon, and I have some items at the auction house. I should have another 1,000,000 gold coming in a few days. My mother was speechless. My father sat there for a few seconds, then let out a booming laugh. That's my son. Haha. Tell me, what kind of archer are you? What's the rank? I guess you could call me a lightning archer, I said. As for the rank, I awakened as an F rank, I said, pausing for effect. But my lightning element is unique. In terms of actual combat power, I'm comparable to an SSS rank professional. My dad, Zhang Jingguo, nearly choked on his tea. Comparable to SSS rank? My goodness. Xiao Fan, you've really done it. You've brought honor to the Zhang family name. He slapped my shoulder, his face beaming with a pride I hadn't seen in years. Then, the reality of my earlier words hit my mom. Liua? Wait, did you say you're leaving the city tomorrow? Yes, I replied firmly. I've graduated. I have the permit to go outside. No, she shot it down instantly, her face pale. It's too dangerous out there. There are monsters everywhere. You can't go. Mom, I'm a combat professional, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. I've finished school. If I don't leave the city, how am I supposed to get stronger? She bit her lip. She knew I was right, but the fear of losing her son was written all over her face. My dad sighed, set down his tea, and picked up a piece of braised pork, dropping it into my bowl. Forget it, Yue, he said quietly. Xiao Fan is a combatant now. His potential is higher than ours. We can't hold him back and ruin his future. Come on, son, eat your mom's cooking. She made this specifically for you. My mom hesitated, then looked at me with worried eyes. Fine, but who are you going with? Just myself, I said. Alone? No way, she cried out. Archers have no defense. It's suicide. Maybe I should call your aunt? She could have her team look after you. I shook my head immediately. You know how she is. I'm not interested in dealing with them. Then you'll be all alone, she fretted. There's no guarantee for your safety. My dad lit a cigarette, blowing a cloud of smoke into the air. What if I call your cousin Sue? Maybe he's free to join you. There's no need, I told them. I'm heading to the zones where monsters are level 10 or lower. I'm confident I can handle anything in that range. You're only level 5, my dad pointed out. Where does that confidence come from? Dad, Mom, don't worry about it, I said, giving them a reassuring smile. I have a C-rank bow and C-rank armor. I'll be perfectly safe. While I was reassuring my parents, things were much more tense at the gates of number 5 high school. Zhaoying stared at Jin Xiaohua, her face twisted in disbelief. What did you say, she hissed. That trash Zhang Fan reached level 5? And he passed the trial with an SSS rank evaluation. It's true, Jin Xiaohua replied, his voice dripping with bitterness. You were in a dungeon all afternoon, so you missed it. The whole school is talking about it. Zhao Ying's face contorted with rage. She had spent years looking down on me, treating me like dirt beneath her boots. Hearing that I had surpassed her was like a slap to the face. Hatred, jealousy, and a dark, murderous intent swirled in her eyes. No, she whispered. I won't let him get ahead of me. Jin Xiaohua, come here. She leaned in and whispered something into his ear. His eyes widened slightly. If you handle this, Zhaoying said, pulling out her phone, I'll make sure you're taken care of in Jiangzhou City. Well, all right, Jin Xiaohua stammered. I'll do it, but my credit card is maxed out. Is that all? Zhaoying sneered. She tapped her screen, and Jin Xiaohua's phone chimed. There, a few 100,000 gold as a deposit. She looked toward the direction of my house, her eyes cold. Zhang Fan, so what if you have talent? You have no background. Killing you is still as easy as crushing an ant. That same night, at 9 p.m., the Jiangzhou City Education Bureau was usually dark and empty. Tonight, however, every window was glowing. Staff members hurried through the halls with stacks of reports. It was the day of the awakening, the most important night of the year. Inside Conference Room 1, dozens of high-ranking officials and school principals were gathered. Principal Gao, one man called out, looking at the head of number 1 high school. What kind of talent did your school produce this year? Principal Gao, who ran the best school in the city, sipped his tea with a smug grin. Oh, nothing much. Just a few S-rank professionals. Nothing special. Just a few S-ranks? The principal of number 3 high joked. Old Gao, you're getting arrogant. I can't help it, Gao laughed. My students work hard. He then turned his gaze toward the back of the room, landing on Principal Liu from number 5 high. Old Liu, what about your school? Any SSS-ranked geniuses we should be jealous of? The two men had been rivals since they were young, both having fought for the affection of the woman who eventually became Liu's wife. Gao never missed a chance to humiliate him. To your disappointment, Principal Liu said calmly, we didn't have any SSS rank awakenings. However, we did have one student pass the trial with an SSS rank evaluation. Gao burst out laughing. Old Liu, don't lie to us. You expect us to believe that. Believe it or not, Liu replied. Laugh now, but you won't be laughing in a minute. You must be senile, Gao sneered. It's the first day? No student could pass the trial yet, let alone with an SSS rating. Tell you what, if any of your students even reached level 4 today, I'll give your school a level 5 B rank monster core. The room went quiet. A level 5 B rank core was incredibly rare. They were essential for powering school trial dungeons and had a chance to drop high-value B rank gear. To a principal, it was like giving away a piece of his heart. Old gal Lou grinned. Don't go back on your word. Suddenly, the director of the Education Bureau walked in. He went straight to Principal Lou. Principal Lou, the director said, his voice urgent. Regarding this student, Zhang Fan, are you absolutely sure about the data? I wouldn't joke about something like this, Director, Lou replied. The director let out a long breath and started laughing. Good. Excellent. Old Lou, you've brought honor to Jiangzhou. No, to the entire Jiangnan province. Awakening and passing the trial with an SSS rank in less than a day. This breaks every record in our history. A collective gasp filled the room. Principal Gao's face turned gray. The next morning, as the sun began to peek over the horizon, I arrived at the gates of Jiangzhou City. The walls were massive, nearly 70 feet high, protected by a shimmering curtain of magical energy. The gate itself was a fortress. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the exit. My journey was just beginning. I placed my watch onto the scanner. A sharp beep echoed through the quiet hall, and the glass door slid open just wide enough for me to pass. The lobby was massive, spanning about 200 square meters, with the city exit straight ahead and rows of quest terminals lining the walls. It was early, so the place was nearly empty. I walked up to the nearest machine and swiped my watch. The screen flickered to life, displaying the newbie quest zone. The suggestions were all for 5-man teams. One quest asked for 10 red-tailed fox pelts from level 8 monsters for 80 contribution points. Another wanted 10 wind wolf fangs for 50 points. Then I saw it. A quest to clear a new wilderness dungeon called the 10,000 Snake Caves. The recommended strength was a full team of 5 level 10 professionals. The reward? 10,000 contribution points. As I studied the screen, a young man brushed past me. I didn't notice him planting a tiny, near-invisible trace of energy onto my back. I focused on the dungeon. These natural rifts appeared randomly across the planet. If someone cleared a new one within a month, it would stabilize. A 1-star rating meant it stayed for a year. 2 stars meant 2 years. If no one cleared it within 30 days, it would collapse and potentially trigger a monster tide. The government took these very seriously. 5 level 10s? I whispered to myself. With my current stats, I thought I could handle it alone. 10,000 contribution points were worth more than gold. In this world, points were a status symbol. There were luxury items and rare resources you couldn't buy with money unless you had the reputation to match. I wanted that reward. I checked the map on my watch and typed in the name. The location popped up to the east. I cursed under my breath. I was at the south gate, and the cave was quite a distance away. Still, the chance to get rich overnight was worth the trek. I flicked my wrist, and my mountain motorcycle materialized in the open space. I hopped on and roared away, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Moments after I left, 3 men stepped out of the lobby. They watched my trail for a second, then pulled out their own vehicle and headed south. Brother Hui, a short man asked, looking at a photo of me on his phone. Do we really need to be this careful for one kid? You don't understand, the leader replied, his eyes cold. He just awakened yesterday, and he's already heading into the wilderness alone. That's unprecedented in Jiangzhou history. His talent is dangerous. The officials will be watching him. If we aren't careful and they trace this back to us, we're dead. I had been riding for about 20 minutes when I felt a surge of beastly energy nearby. I skidded to a stop, stored the bike in my inventory, and blurred into a dash. With one powerful leap, I perched myself high up in a massive tree. About 10 meters away, a 3-meter-long boar was aggressively rooting through the base of a thick tree. I scanned it immediately. It was an iron-skinned boar, level 7. It had 730 health and a defense of 58. Wild monsters were definitely stronger than the ones in the trial dungeon. My attack power was 139, which doubled to 278 on a critical hit. Even with my buffs, I was still stuck in my 3-arrow rule. It would take exactly 3 hits to kill it. I summoned my thunderstorm bow, and pulled the string to full tension. I let fly. Swish. The arrow whistled through the air, but the boar shifted its weight at the last possible microsecond. The arrow thudded into the dirt. It was pure luck, but the beast was furious. It turned toward my tree, snorting and grunting. I couldn't understand boar, but I could tell from its expression that it was cursing me out in the foulest way possible. I didn't argue with livestock. I just aimed again. Thud. This time, the arrow hit home. The force of the impact knocked the 3-meter beast back 2 meters. Its health bar dropped by 278. The boar scrambled up, the rage in its eyes replaced by pure shock. It stared at me, stunned that a single shot had taken over a third of its life. I pulled the string back a third time. The boar's pupils dilated in terror. It turned tail and bolted, crashing through the underbrush. But it only had 20 agility. With my agility at 71, it was like a turtle trying to outrun a tiger. The boar ran 30 meters before I suddenly appeared right in front of its path. It skidded to a halt, looking back at the tree I had just been in, then back at me. Its face was a mask of confusion, as if asking, "How the hell are you here?" I didn't give it an answer. Thud! Another arrow sent it flying. It tried to stand one last time, but I didn't give it the chance. The third arrow pierced its hide and ended it. A notification popped up, 15 attribute points gained. I opened my status window. My attack was solid for now, and my agility was overwhelming for anything under level 10. My defense, however, was still my weakest link. I looked at the 15 points, ready to grow even stronger. I had 15 attribute points to spend. My annihilation armor handled my defense for now, so I wasn't in a rush to boost my physical body. I thought about my stamina, but my fights usually ended so quickly that I didn't feel the drain. Spirit, however, was different. Higher spirit meant better perception and faster reactions on the battlefield. I put 5 points into spirit. The remaining 10 went straight into energy. My high attack power drained my reserves fast, and the more energy I had, the more my armor could soak up. With the points distributed, I felt a surge of renewed strength. I pulled out a knife, cracked open the wild boar's skull, and retrieved a level 7 essence core. I tossed the entire carcass into my storage space. It would fetch a good price at a restaurant, or I could just cook it myself later. I walked back to the massive tree the boar had been digging at. It hadn't been acting like that for no reason. I circled the trunk, searching for anything unusual, but found nothing at first. Was I overthinking it? I rubbed my chin, staring at the deep gouges in the bark, and tried to remember everything I'd learned in school about beast behavior. Then it clicked. A blood pupa. My teacher had mentioned them once. Wild boars had a natural, almost psychic ability to sense them. No matter how well a blood pupa was hidden, a boar could lock onto its location from 10 meters away. They were rare insect-type beasts with 0 combat power and paper-thin defense, but they were packed with concentrated life force. If a beast or a human ate one, their maximum health would permanently increase. Because of that, they had been hunted to near extinction. I hadn't seen one in a city market for decades. I pulled out an axe. Even though it was just a standard tool, my strength made it a wrecking ball. I hacked at the trunk with everything I had. The tree was so thick it would have taken 3 men to reach around it, but I brought it crashing down in seconds. As the wood splintered, a faint, metallic scent hit my nose. It was the smell of blood, but it didn't make me feel sick. It made my own pulse quicken. It was really here. I put the axe away and used my hands like claws, carefully tearing away chunks of the root system. A blood pupa was incredibly fragile. If I nicked it, its medicinal value would vanish instantly. I had to be slow. I had to be precise. Nearby, a team of level 13 professionals was passing through the zone. They stopped dead. That smell, their captain whispered, his eyes widening. It's not normal blood. It makes my heart race. Could it be a blood pupa? I was so focused on the prize that I didn't notice them approaching. It was a rookie mistake. The excitement of finding a treasure had blinded me to my surroundings. A level 5 newbie, a voice called out. I froze. 5 people had surrounded me. I cursed myself silently. How could I have been so careless? I scanned them quickly. 5 of them, all level 13. They had 2 ranged attackers, 1 melee, 1 tank, and a healer. Based on their gear, Their highest attack was probably around 120. I did the math. With my armor, I could tank about 7 hits without taking damage. But they couldn't survive a single arrow from me. I decided my priority: kill the ranged users first, then the melee fighter. The other two would be easy. "Hey kid, you a recent graduate?" the tall leader asked, looking around to see if I had any teammates hiding in the brush. I didn't say a word. I just watched them. "Our captain is talking to you," a short, chubby guy barked, looking impatient. "What do you want?" I asked coolly. "This is our hunting zone," the leader said. "Leave. Now." "Fine," I replied. I didn't want to fight if I could avoid it. I started to back away slowly. "Wait," the tall one shouted. He caught a glimpse of the mangled tree roots I had been working on. "You can leave, but the treasure stays here." I had already slipped the blood pupa into my storage ring the second I saw them. "What treasure?" I lied. "I didn't find anything." "Don't play games. Hand it over, and you can walk. You've got talent, kid. Don't throw your life away for a bug." The 5 of them drew their weapons in perfect sync. They weren't underestimating me. They knew that any level 5 student brave enough to be out here alone wasn't a soft target. "So, you're really going to do this," I said. I reached into my storage and pulled out the thunderstorm bow. I had no experience killing people, and I didn't want to start today. But I knew the rules of this world. If it was my life or theirs, I wasn't going to be the one who ended up in the dirt. "C-grade equipment," the leader gasped, his eyes fixed on the glowing energy of the bow. A C-grade weapon was worth at least 50,000 gold, maybe 100,000. Most people couldn't even buy one if they had the money. The elites hoarded them. I only had mine because a teacher had traded it to the school to secure a promotion. To these men, I wasn't just a kid with a treasure anymore. I was a walking fortune. The high-ranking officials at the martial arts high school had put this thunderstorm bow in the exchange office specifically to attract geniuses. Only students could redeem it. If it hadn't been for that rule, a commoner like me would never have touched it. It would have been snatched up by some billionaire or sold at a high-end auction long ago. The tall leader hesitated. He didn't dare to move. In his eyes, a kid with this kind of talent and a C-grade weapon had to have a massive background. If they killed me, they weren't just killing a student. They were inviting a blood feud that could wipe out their entire families. "Whose family do you belong to?" he asked, his voice wavering. "What does that have to do with you?" I didn't lower the bow. I aimed it straight at his chest. If they even twitched, I was going to fire. I was ready to strike first. "Whoa, little brother, why so tense?" The tall guy stared at me for a few seconds, then slowly lowered his staff. "We don't have any ill will." He was clearly overthinking it. He probably assumed I was from one of the great clans in Jiangzhou City. Those elites usually had bodyguards or hidden cameras recording their every move. He likely thought a powerful protector was watching from the shadows right now, or that a rescue team was already closing in. "It's a misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding," he said, backing away. "You keep busy. We've got places to be." He turned and led his team away in a hurry. I stood there, honestly a bit confused. I didn't realize how much these thugs feared the safety measures of the big families. Once they reached their car, a woman in their group whispered, "Captain, are we overthinking this?" If he was from a big family, they wouldn't let him wander the wasteland alone. "Maybe," the leader replied, glancing back nervously. "But there could be a master hidden nearby that we can't detect. We can't afford to gamble our lives on a guess. We might not get the blood pupa, but we can sell the information. Some old elder from a major clan will pay a fortune for news about a life-extending treasure." I didn't stick around to hear them. I hopped on my motorcycle and rode 2 kilometers away before finally stopping. After checking my surroundings and finding no danger, I pulled out the blood pupa. It was blood red, about 5 centimeters long, and as thick as a man's thumb. I checked its stats. It was a level 15 beast with 10,000 health, but almost no attack power. The description made my heart skip a beat. Consuming this increases maximum health by 1,000 points and extends lifespan by 10 years. The stat gap was insane. No wonder these things were hunted to near extinction. 1,000 health was great, but 10 extra years of life? That was God tier. As I was inspecting it, a mountain terrain vehicle pulled up about 500 meters away. A thin man stepped out, and suddenly, his body turned transparent. He vanished completely. I didn't see him. I tucked the pupil away and started my bike, heading toward the Thousand Snake Caves. The pupil was valuable, but I didn't need it for myself. You could buy health-boosting items if you had enough gold, but life-extending treasures were unheard of. I was young. I didn't need 10 more years yet. My plan was to auction it at the Wanbao auction house. I didn't just want gold, though. I wanted experience beads. If I could level up my parents, their health would naturally increase, which was its own form of longevity. High-grade experience beads were rare, and I needed them more than a bug. As I rode, a roar erupted behind me. A heavy mountain vehicle was redlining its engine, charging straight at my back. It didn't slow down. It was aiming for me. I reacted on instinct, leaping off the motorcycle just as the heavy bumper slammed into it. There was a deafening crunch. My bike was sent flying 7 meters, shattering into a heap of useless scrap metal. Crap, where did this idiot come from? See me coming, and you don't even move. A burly man with a thick beard climbed out of the passenger side, cursing. A shorter, stocky man stepped out from the driver's seat. "Kid, look what you did to our car," the driver said, pointing at a small dent on his bumper. His eyes were cold. "How are you going to pay for this?" "You hit me," I snapped. I pushed my perception to the limit. After the last ambush, I wasn't taking chances. These two were level 15. My watch couldn't show their specific classes, but I could feel their energy. They weren't here by accident. This was a shakedown. I didn't waste words. I pulled out the thunderstorm bow. "Huh, Brother Hui, look at this." The stocky driver laughed, pointing at me. "This level 5 rookie actually wants to fight us? I'm gonna die laughing." "Put the toy away, kid," the bearded man, Hui, said. "We aren't unreasonable. We won't even extort you. Just give us 1,000 gold coins for the repairs. Consider it a graduation gift, otherwise, it would cost you 5,000. I frowned. Was I overthinking this? Were they just assholes instead of assassins? No, they clearly rammed me on purpose. I pointed to my wrecked bike 7 meters away. "You destroyed my ride. How are we settling that?" "Don't be ungrateful, brat," the driver shouted. "Brother Hui is being generous. You want to try and scam us now?" "Forget it, Xiao Hu," Hui said, waving him off. "He just graduated. It's not easy for kids these days. Just transfer 3,000 gold coins to him." Hui sized me up one more time, his brow furrowing. He turned to the stocky man and gave the order. "Brother Hui, that's a huge loss for us," the stocky man protested, looking shocked. "Stop talking nonsense and pay him. We have important business to attend to," Hui snapped. He turned his back on us and climbed into the passenger seat of the car. "Lucky brat," the stocky man, Xiao Hu, grumbled. He fumbled with his watch, looking annoyed as he walked toward me. "Your lucky brother Hui is such a nice guy." The sudden change in attitude caught me off guard. I couldn't understand why this aggressive thug was suddenly handing over cash. "Payment code, now," Xiao Hu urged, standing right in front of me. "Don't just stand there. We're in a hurry." Even though something felt off, I didn't see a reason to refuse free money. I pulled up the QR code on my watch and held my arm out. The moment I reached out, the trap sprung. Xiao Hu didn't look at the watch. He lunged, his hands snapping out like vipers to grab my arms. I realized it was a setup and tried to jump back, but a sharp whistle of wind cut through the air behind me. A third man appeared out of thin air at my back, a dagger aimed straight for my heart. I hadn't sensed him at all. My perception hadn't picked up a single vibration. His speed was on a completely different level than mine. I was pinned from the front and ambushed from behind. There was no time to dodge. I had to tank it. The moment Xiao Hu's hands touched my skin, a surge of darkness erupted from my body. The annihilation armor manifested instantly, coating me in black scales. A bolt of black lightning arced from my skin into Xiao Hu's palms. He didn't even have time to scream before his hands were erased, turning into gray ash that drifted into the wind. Then, the agonizing shriek finally tore from his throat. Behind me, the assassin's dagger struck my back. The black lightning reacted again, surging into the blade. The metal disintegrated instantly, vanishing into dust before it could even scratch my skin. I knew the annihilation armor was strong, but I didn't expect this. It didn't just block attacks, it deleted them. It was absolute. It didn't care about the level difference or the quality of the weapon. It simply erased anything that tried to hurt me. But I couldn't afford to be stunned. I pulled my bow and aimed. The assassin with the dagger was frozen. He and Xiao, who were level 15 professionals. They thought killing a level 5 rookie at point-blank range would be like stepping on an ant. Seeing his weapon turn to dust broke his brain for a split second. That second was all I needed. I released the string. The arrow tore through the air, powered by the black lightning. It punched a hole the size of a bowl straight through the man's chest. Monsters have cores that provide massive health regeneration, making them hard to kill unless you empty their HP bar. Humans don't have that. If a vital organ is destroyed, we bleed out and die unless we have high-level healing potions immediately. The arrow didn't kill him instantly because of his high-level gear, so I lunged forward and delivered a heavy kick to his head. The lightning from my boots finished the job, erasing half of his skull. A level 15 human was still fragile compared to a dungeon boss. I landed, spun, and fired a second arrow before Xiao, who could even stop screaming about his missing hands. The shot was true. His head exploded like a ripe melon. The entire fight, from the ambush to the double kill, took less than 2 seconds. At this range, I didn't even need to aim. Inside the car, Hui was staring through the windshield, his jaw dropping. He realized he had just kicked a steel wall. He scrambled from the passenger seat to the driver's side, desperate to start the engine and flee. I didn't give him the chance. An arrow whistled through the window, pinning him to the driver's seat. I blurred across the distance, reaching through the broken glass to grab his hand before he could reach for a healing potion. "Who sent you?" I growled. These men didn't know me. They had used a complex scheme to get close because they knew I had high attack power and speed. They were afraid of a fair fight. That meant whoever hired them had briefed them on my abilities. I'm a dead man anyway," Hui wheezed, his eyes glazing over. Between the arrow wound and the toxic corrosion from my skill, he was fading fast. "Tell me, or I'll find your family and kill them too," I snarled, grabbing his collar. I already suspected Jin Xiaohua, but I needed to be sure. I couldn't have unknown enemies lurking in the shadows. You can't. Family is off limits." Hui struggled to breathe, his face contorting in fear. "You have seconds left," I pressured him. "Talk, and I leave them alone." It was Jin Xiaowai. His head slumped. He was gone. As the silence settled over the road, the adrenaline began to fade, and the weight of what I'd done hit me. My hands started to shake. This was the first time I had killed people. A dark cloud of dread settled in my gut, and I felt like I was going to be sick. To drown out the fear, I started cursing out loud. Those bastards. 3 level 15s against a level 5, and they still had to use sneak attacks? No shame at all. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my heart. If I didn't have the annihilation armor, I'd be a corpse on the pavement right now. I had to be more careful. Everyone was a threat. "Jin Xiaohua, you son of a bitch," I muttered. "I'm coming for you. And Zhaoying, I know you're behind this too. Just wait." I went through their pockets and storage rings, but I didn't find much. Their gear was basic level 15 stuff, worth maybe 100,000 gold coins in total. The potions and consumables added another 100,000. It wasn't a jackpot, but it was enough to cover the cost of my wrecked bike. I gathered the loot and disappeared into the shadows. I needed to get stronger, and I needed to do it fast. I didn't leave the bodies on the side of the road. I grabbed a spare storage ring, stuffed all 3 of them inside, and dug a quick, shallow hole to bury the evidence. Once the dirt was packed down, I finally took a moment to look at the new skill I'd looted. It was called Stealth. It was a signature move for the assassin class, and it explained why I hadn't sensed that hidden attacker until it was almost too late. The skill granted a 20% movement speed boost and rendered the user completely invisible. The only catch was that the effect would break if I took damage or launched an attack. It was the perfect tool for an ambush or a quick escape. After what I'd just been through, I had a newfound appreciation for survival skills. I didn't hesitate. I clicked Learn and felt the knowledge settle into my mind. I tested it out immediately, watching my hands vanish into thin air. With the threat gone for now, I looked at my mountain bike. The windshield was shattered, but the engine still turned over when I twisted the key. It beat walking. I hopped on and hit the gas. The school had taught us all how to drive these things, but I'd always preferred motorcycles. My handling was a bit shaky, and the bumpy terrain forced me to slow down. At this rate, It was going to take me an extra hour to reach the myriad snake cave. I just hoped no one cleared the dungeon before I got there. As I drove, I didn't waste time. If a beast crossed my path, I killed it. Most of them were under level 10, so they didn't take more than a few seconds to deal with. It was easy experience on the go. While I was traveling, things were getting chaotic back in Jiangzhou City. The 5 people who had surrounded me earlier were currently celebrating in a forest of stone pillars. They were ecstatic. By using the anonymous communication functions on their watches, they had leaked the news of the blood surge to the city's major factions. In a city like Jiangzhou, the big families relied on their pillars, powerful elders who acted as their ultimate deterrents. But these elders were aging, their health failing every year. If a family didn't produce a new powerhouse before their elder died, they'd be swallowed whole by their rivals. The news of a blood surge item was like a drop of water hitting boiling oil. The 5 informants sold the intel for 100,000 gold coins per faction, pocketing over 1 million in total. The moment the factions saw the footage of me, they recognized me instantly. I was the kid who got an SSS rank in the Awakening trial. In the Zhao family meeting room, the atmosphere was tense. A middle-aged man frowned at the head of the table, Zhao Hanting. He pointed out that while I had no background, my talent made me a sensitive target. Zhao Hanting didn't care. He wanted that blood surge at any cost. Some suggested buying it from me, but Zhao Hanting shot that down immediately, knowing other families would just outbid them. Send the dark guards, one man suggested coldly. If the kid is smart, he lives. If not, he dies outside the city. Without evidence, the authorities can't say a word. Soon, anonymous bounties started appearing all over the city's networks. 10,000 gold coins for my exact location. The city was buzzing. Low-level mercenary teams who were resting in town suddenly dropped everything to hunt me down. 10,000 gold was more than they could make in a month of hard hunting. Some guessed I had a treasure and planned to kill me for it. I knew none of this. I had muted my watch notifications before I went to sleep, and out here in the wilds, the signal was dead anyway. My parents probably tried to call me to warn me to come home, but they couldn't get through. I kept moving, killing higher-level beasts as I went. By the time the sun hit its peak, I had reached level 6. I'd picked up a few pieces of junk gear and 27 extra attribute points from drops. I pulled my bike into a quiet grove for a lunch break. The air was fresh, and the silence of the wilderness felt much better than the crowded city. I sat on a large rock, eating some pre-cooked beast meat and washing it down with iced tea. I wasn't much of a cook, so I hadn't brought any pots or pans. While I ate, I distributed my points. 10 into energy, 17 into attack, and the last 10 into agility. I was getting closer to the myriad snake cave. The number of snakes in the area was increasing, but I knew I probably wouldn't hit level 7 before I reached the entrance. In this world, beasts usually stayed near the dungeons they spawned from. A level 10 dungeon would have beasts within a 10-kilometer radius. A level 20 dungeon would cover 20 kilometers. I finished my meal and got back on the bike. Most level 10 players had already moved on to higher zones months ago. Even the least talented people from last year's Awakening should have broken past level 10 by now. I was likely going to be the only one there. I knew the risks. There was always a chance, a slim one, but a chance, that a team of lower-level players was clearing the myriad snake cave right now. If they snagged the first clear reward before me, I'd never forgive myself. I wasn't about to miss out on those exclusive bonuses. I kicked my mountain bike into gear and pedaled toward the cave. After 2 hours of riding, my handling had improved, and I was picking up speed. Still, compared to a motorized bike, this thing was agonizingly slow. It took me another 30 minutes to cover the last few kilometers. The entrance to the myriad snake cave finally loomed ahead. It was a massive stone grotto, 7 meters high and 3 meters wide, thrusting out of the earth next to a small stream. The stone walls were carved with countless lifelike snakes. A few massive pythons were sculpted with their jaws wide open, their stone fangs seeming to shimmer with a ghostly green venom. Above the opening, 3 large characters were etched into the rock, Myriad Snake Cave. A shimmering energy barrier covered the entrance, obscuring the interior. I scanned the area. There wasn't a soul in sight. It looked like every player under level 10 had already moved on to better hunting grounds. I muttered a quiet observation to myself, glad for the privacy, and stored my bike away. I drew my thunderstorm bow and stepped toward the barrier. As I crossed the threshold, the world went dark. A set of stone stairs led deep underground. Dim energy stones were embedded in the walls, casting a faint, sickly glow that barely lit the path. I headed down, step by step, descending into the depths. After rounding 2 sharp turns, the narrow passage suddenly opened up into a wide chamber about 30 square meters in size. I stood on the final step and looked out. This was the first trial. As soon as my foot touched the cavern floor, the air shimmered. 10 small snakes materialized instantly. They were about 70 centimeters long, as thick as a man's thumb, with brownish-gray scales and vibrant, blood-red tails. In the gloom, those tails stood out like glowing embers. My watch scanned them immediately, projecting their stats into the air. They were red-tailed snakes, level 1. Their health was 110, attack was 13, and agility was 13. All 10 were identical. A second later, they hissed and slithered toward me, their bodies twisting rapidly across the stone. To anyone else, they might have looked fast. To me, they were moving in slow motion. I didn't even bother raising my bow. I just walked straight into the pack. Their defense was a pathetic 12 points, while my physical strength was over 30. I had enough raw power to simply stomp them into the dirt. Thud, thud, thud. In less than 3 seconds, the snakes were nothing but smears on the floor. 2 of them tried to strike my legs, but they hit my annihilation armor and were instantly vaporized, leaving nothing but essence crystals behind. I tossed the 10 level 1 crystals into my storage space. My experience bar didn't budge. Killing high-level beasts gave massive bonuses, but killing things lower than your own level resulted in diminishing returns. At level 6, killing a level 1 beast gave me absolutely nothing. 3 breaths later, the room shimmered again. 10 more snakes appeared. They were still level 1, but their stats were slightly higher than the last batch. Still, it wasn't enough to matter. I crushed them under my boots in 2 seconds flat. I cleared 9 waves like this. Each time, the snakes got slightly stronger, but they remained fodder. Then came the 10th wave. This time, only 1 snake appeared, and it was different. A massive crimson python, 7 meters long and half a meter thick, materialized in the center of the cave. It looked imposing, but I didn't give it a second glance. No matter how strong it looked, it was still just a bug to be squashed. Lightning flickered around my feet. In a flash, I was standing right next to the giant snake. I channeled the annihilation thunder into my right leg and delivered a brutal kick. The python took the hit full in the side and flew across the room, slamming into the stone wall with a sickening crunch. It hit the ground dead before it could even hiss. I walked over, pulled out a dagger, and sliced into its head to retrieve the crystal. But when the core rolled out, I froze. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't a standard essence crystal. It was a 6-sided, transparent gem the size of a hen's egg. I couldn't believe my eyes. This was a dungeon core. Dungeon cores were the foundation of every artificial trial zone. The training dungeons at my school were built using these cores as a base, combined with other rare materials. Without one, humans couldn't create safe zones for training. Every dungeon had a lifespan, and when the core exhausted itself, the dungeon collapsed. Holding a dungeon core meant you had the power to build and grow your own faction. Unlike wild dungeons, human-made ones could be programmed with safety rules, like ensuring a player's health never dropped below 1% or teleporting them out before they took a fatal blow. I didn't know the science behind it, but I knew the value. A safe training ground meant a faction could level up its members without any casualties. Of course, they weren't perfect. Artificial dungeons couldn't spawn infinite beasts like the wild ones did. You had to capture live monsters or use specific essence crystals to project illusions for people to fight. It was expensive to maintain, but a dungeon core was still a priceless treasure that major powers would kill to possess. I stared at the gem in my hand. My luck today was terrifying. First, I ran into blood puppets that hadn't been seen in decades. Now, I'd walked into a low-level dungeon and walked out with a legendary dungeon core. This didn't feel like my usual luck. I had been alive for 18 years, and while I wouldn't say I was cursed, good things usually stayed far away from me. But starting yesterday, my luck had done a complete 180. It was like the goddess of fortune had suddenly developed a crush on me. I picked up the dungeon core, my hands trembling slightly. This wasn't just a gem. It was wealth beyond my wildest dreams. It was power. I took a deep breath, calmed my racing heart, and stepped out of the cave. I had work to do. I moved to the second cave. Level 2 snakes. I wiped them out without breaking a sweat. The third cave held level 3 snakes. I tore through them just as easily. By the time I reached the ninth cave, I heard the familiar chime in my head. I had hit level 8. I had 18 attribute points to spend. I didn't hesitate. I dumped every single one of them into my attack stat. I needed to kill faster. Then I reached the 10th cave. This was where things got serious. The snakes here were all level 10 red-tailed snakes. I scanned the nearest one. It had 1,000 health points and 73 attack power. Its agility was 50. I did the math in my head. With my current buffs, my attack was 178.2. If I landed a critical hit, that jumped to 356.4. That meant it would still take me 3 arrows to kill one snake. There were 10 snakes in the pack. That was 30 shots. I frowned. At my current speed, it would take me at least 30 seconds to clear them all. The efficiency was too low. I wasn't happy. If any other professional had heard me complaining, they probably would have punched me. A standard 5-man team of level 10s would be lucky to survive this pack. Even a top-tier elite team would spend hours in a life-or-death struggle just to clear one room. I was level 8, I was alone, and I was complaining that 30 seconds was too slow. I didn't realize how insane I was being. I just didn't have a frame of reference for how hard it was for everyone else. To me, these snakes were slow. My agility was 118.8, more than double theirs. They couldn't even lock onto my position, let alone bite me. I became a blur. I wove through the pack, my fingers flying as I loosed arrow after arrow. While I was busy clearing the dungeon, a crowd was gathering outside the 1,000-snake hole. Word had traveled fast. Someone had spotted tracks leading into the dungeon. The tracks belonged to a single person. In Jiangzhou City, everyone knew that only one person had gained the right to leave the city gates this year, me. The veterans standing outside couldn't believe a level 5 rookie would have the guts to enter a level 10 dungeon alone, but the evidence was right there. Greed took over. People started selling my location to anyone with a bounty out on me. Within an hour, the entrance was surrounded. Most of them wore tight combat suits and masks to hide their identities. These weren't amateurs. I could feel the energy fluctuations coming off them. They were all level 30 or higher. Over 30 different teams stood in silence, watching each other warily. Further back, lower-level professionals whispered among themselves. They wondered if I was actually trying to clear the place or if I was just suicidal. Some argued that even if I was a genius, a level 5 couldn't possibly beat level 10 beasts. Others pointed out that I had made it through the wilderness alone, which meant I was already stronger than a normal level 10. The realization hit them like a physical blow. If I really had that kind of power after only 2 days of awakening, I wasn't just a genius, I was a monster. Deeper in the shadows, even stronger figures appeared. These newcomers were level 40 and above, their eyes fixed on the dungeon portal. Inside the cave, I was oblivious to the army waiting for me. I was clearing waves every minute. The experience bar was filling up at a ridiculous rate. By the time I finished the 9th wave of the 10th cave, I hit level 9. 3 levels in just over an hour. It felt like I was riding a rocket. I gained 10 more attribute points. I put them into agility and spirit to keep my mana up. My stats were climbing into the stratosphere. Finally, the 10th wave of the 10th cave spawned. This was the final boss of the dungeon. If I killed this, I'd get the first clear rewards. Everyone knew the first clear of a dungeon was where the real legendary loot was hidden. The boss was a massive red-tailed snake, its body wreathed in flickering flames. It had 1,700 health and 100 attack power. But it was the skill that worried me, Hell Magma. It was a massive area of effect attack that added fire damage and slowed the target's agility by 50%. For an archer like me, losing half my speed was a death sentence. If that magma hit the floor, I'd be trapped. I looked at the giant, flaming serpent, and gripped my bow tighter. I had plenty of healing potions, but I didn't want to find out if they could outpace burning lava. I had to end this fast. I could use healing potions to recover my health instantly, but that 50% agility debuff was the real problem. If my speed dropped, I'd be left with only 70 points. Against a boss with 80 agility, I'd be a sitting duck. I wasn't ready to give up, though. I hadn't come this far to walk away empty-handed. Before I could even finish the thought, the red-tailed snake moved. It reared its massive head, opened its maw, and spat. A glob of molten magma flew through the air, expanding as it traveled. By the time it hit the floor, the entire cave ground had turned into a bubbling pool of fire. I leaped into the air, using my speed to dodge the direct hit. But there was nowhere to land except the lava. As my boots touched the surface, a wave of suffocating heat hit me. The searing air rushed into my nose and down into my lungs. It burned. It felt like I was breathing in liquid fire. The moment I sank into the magma, my Nirvana armor flickered into existence. Black streaks of lightning crackled around my body, forming a barrier that pushed the heat away. Even the lava beneath my feet was instantly pulverized into gray ash by the divine lightning. The magma rushed toward me like a tide, but anything within 3 centimeters of my body simply vanished into dust. I stood in the middle of a lake of fire, surrounded by a small, dry void. The boss didn't give me time to marvel. It launched its body forward, snapping its jaws at my head. The stench of rotting meat from its throat made me gag. I instinctively stepped back, and that's when I realized something incredible. My movement was smooth. I wasn't slow. I checked my stats and nearly laughed. The 50% agility debuff wasn't there. My Nirvana armor didn't just block physical damage, it completely ignored negative status effects. The divine lightning was literally disintegrating the curse before it could touch me. This skill was even more broken than I thought. I felt my energy levels dipping, though. Maintaining the armor in this environment was draining my mana fast. I had to end this now. With my current gear and buffs, my attack power sat at 323. If I landed a critical hit, I'd deal over 640 damage. The boss had 1700 health. I needed 3 clean shots. I became a streak of black lightning, darting across the lava. The snake lunged, but I was already gone, repositioning and drawing my bow in one fluid motion. I fired. Then again. And again. It took me exactly 5 seconds to let loose 3 arrows. The final arrow pierced the serpent's skull. Its massive body slammed into the ground, and the lake of lava instantly evaporated, leaving the cave cold and silent. I let out a long, shaky breath. My energy bar was down to 37 points. It had been a 5-second fight, but it was the most exhausting one of my life. I looked at my hands. The Nirvana lightning was terrifying. As long as I had mana, it made me invincible. It ignored defenses on offense and neutralized all threats on defense. It even wiped out debuffs that shouldn't have been erasable. I'd spent 12 years in school studying awakened abilities, and I had never heard of anything this dominant. My status screen only gave me a vague description, but I knew there was more to uncover. I walked over to the loot dropped by the boss and started picking up the glowing orbs. I found a C-grade red flame spear and C-grade red flame armor, both requiring a fire tribute class. Then, I hit the jackpot. I pulled out 5 B-grade items, including a rock dragon blade and rock dragon armor. People always said B-grade gear was rare and nearly impossible to find, yet I was holding 5 of them. They were restricted to fire classes, so they might sell for a bit less, but it was still a fortune. Suddenly, golden text manifested in the air above the cave. First clear. 9-star evaluation. Reward. 10 A-grade ores, 10 A-grade spiritual herbs, 10 A-grade energy stones, and 10 A-grade farmland space stones. I stared at the list, my heart skipping a beat. The ores were for repairs, the herbs for high-level potions, and the energy stones for upgrading gear. But the farmland space stones? Those were legendary. On Blue Star, the wilderness was overrun by beasts, making large-scale farming impossible. Most food was grown in small, protected plots inside cities. A farmland space was a separate dimension where you could grow crops safely. An F-grade space was only 1 acre, and an E-grade was 10. But an A-grade space? That was 100,000 acres of fertile land. I had 10 of them. That was 1,000,000 acres of farmland. Outside the dungeon, The announcement was likely appearing in the sky for everyone to see. This wasn't just loot. This was a strategic national resource. By law, anything above D grade had to be turned over to the government, but the compensation was staggering. 1,000,000 acres of A-grade space was worth at least 10 billion gold coins. In 5 seconds, I had become a billionaire. I had just acquired a fortune that most people wouldn't see in a lifetime. All I did was clear a single dungeon, and I was set. Even I felt like the heavens were being a bit unfair to everyone else. But as I stood inside the cave, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. I hadn't looted the Hell Magma skill. I really wanted that area of effect attack and the 50% agility debuff it caused. It seemed my luck had finally run dry for the day. Outside the dungeon, the atmosphere was electric. The crowd watched the sky, staring at the announcement of the 10 billion gold reward. People were losing their minds. They shouted about how unfair it was and how the 9-star evaluation rewards were inhuman. Then, the space at the entrance rippled. I stepped out and my heart dropped. The situation was worse than I imagined. There were too many powerful experts gathered there. I didn't even want to look them in the eye. I was carrying a king's ransom, and I knew for a fact that everyone here wanted a piece of it. I had to run. If I got cornered, I was dead. Luckily, I had downed a potion before exiting to refill my energy. I had assumed that after a day of commotion, maybe some level 11 or 12 teams would show up. I never expected this. Normally, level 13 players wouldn't even bother with this area because they couldn't gain experience here. But I didn't know that my Blood Surge skill had already been leaked on the public channels. I looked around and saw over 100 professionals, most of them around level 30. I realized I was a toddler carrying a gold bar in a dark alley. I didn't hesitate. I activated stealth. My body turned transparent and faded into the air until I vanished completely. The crowd was stunned. They had their speeches ready, prepared to be polite before turning to threats, but I hadn't given them a single second to talk. "Wait, isn't he an archer?" someone yelled. "How can he use a thief stealth skill?" In this world, you were locked into your class skills. Cross-class skills were impossible, but I was the exception. My looting skill didn't care about class or element restrictions. "Don't let him get away," a voice boomed. Scouts immediately jumped into action. One man's eyes glowed with spiritual light, while another conjured swirling energy around his ears. They were using specialized detection skills. "This way, follow him," someone shouted. The pursuit began. Figures blurred as the various factions chased after me. I pushed my legs to the limit, electricity flickering beneath my feet as I left a trail of afterimages. I headed straight for Jiangzhou City. The laws of the country were hard to enforce out here in the wilds. Even though new players were technically protected, evidence was impossible to gather if the attackers masked their identities. If they killed me here, they'd get away with it. But inside the city walls, no one dared to openly defy the law. If I could just reach the gates, I'd be safe. It was a nice dream, but reality hit hard. My agility was top tier for my level, but I was facing level 30 and 40 experts. The gap was too wide. I heard the thundering footsteps and the whistling of wind behind me. They were closing in. I didn't panic. Instead, my mind became incredibly clear. I needed a way out. I couldn't fight my way through a mob of level 40 players. "Zhang Fan, just cooperate with us," someone shouted from the lead group. "We can guarantee your safety. Don't listen to them. Only we can protect you," another voice countered. I didn't slow down. "Kill everyone else first, then maybe I'll believe you," I yelled back. None of them had even identified which factions they belonged to. I wasn't an idiot. "Zhang Fan, we only want the Blood Surge skill. You can keep the farmland stones," a man from the Qin family shouted. They were desperate. Their old patriarch had less than a year to live, and they needed Blood Surge to extend his life. If he died, their family's influence in Jiangzhou would collapse. They were the first to show their hand, but they still kept their faces hidden. If things got ugly, they were still prepared to kill me. Now I knew why they were all here. It wasn't just the gold, it was the life-extending skill. "Stop now, or don't blame us for being ruthless." The 10,000 snake pit wasn't far from the city's east gate. At my full speed, I could make it in an hour. But they knew that too. They wouldn't let me get anywhere near the city guards. Just as they were about to grab me, a scout with glowing eyes threw a specialized capture net. It expanded in the air, flying straight toward my shimmering silhouette. "He's mine," the scout yelled, beginning to pull the net tight. The other factions panicked, terrified someone else would claim the prize. Suddenly, the air was filled with the sound of dozens of skills being unleashed. Fireballs, ice shards, and energy blasts rained down toward my position. "Damn it," I hissed. I felt the heat of 30 different attacks locking onto me. I lunged to the side, pushing my muscles to the breaking point. I was fast, but I wasn't fast enough. 2 attacks slammed into my arm, the force instantly knocking me out of my stealth state. My annihilation armor flared to life, absorbing the brunt of the impact. The capture net touched me for a fraction of a second before it was shredded into dust by the residual energy of the surrounding skills. My energy bar plummeted to 0 in a heartbeat. I was lucky. If those fourth-turn experts hadn't been in such a rush to beat each other to the prize, a single serious strike would have ended me. They could hit for over 4,000 damage. At level 9, I didn't stand a chance against their full power. As the attacks hit, I crushed a level 1 miasma pill I'd looted earlier in the dungeon. A thick, grayish-white fog erupted around me. My own mental stats were high enough to resist the hallucinogenic effects, but I didn't need the pill to poison them. I just needed a screen. Under the veil of the smoke, I vanished back into my stealth skill. The attackers hesitated. To them, a level 9 kid caught in a crossfire of fourth-turn skills should have been vaporized instantly. They assumed the fog was just the result of one of my treasures exploding. I wasn't just hiding, I was playing dead. I didn't run immediately. That would have triggered their tracking skills. Instead, I slipped behind a cluster of massive trees, using the thick trunks to break their line of sight while they were distracted by the smoke. I pulled out a storage ring I'd taken from Brother Hui and tossed it into the grass. "Get lost," a third-turn fighter screamed, lunging for the ring. A fourth-turn expert kicked him aside like a dog and snatched it up, bolting into the woods. The rest of the pack roared and gave chase, terrified of losing the loot. I waited. A minute later, they came back, cursing. The ring had been filled with nothing but trash. I dropped the second decoy ring in the opposite direction and started moving toward the south gate of Jiangzhou City. "Wait," one of them shouted back at the clearing. He had realized something was wrong. When their skills hit me, there hadn't been an energy explosion. My annihilation armor had neutralized the impact instead of letting the energy erupt. "We've been played. There's miasma pill residue in the air." The realization hit them like a physical blow. I had survived a barrage that should have dealt 1,500 damage. At level 9, I should have died 7 times over. Now, greed turned into genuine fear. A kid with that kind of survivability and cold-blooded cunning was a monster in the making. They knew if I lived, I would come for their families. "Find him. He can't have gone far." Their scouts picked up my trail almost immediately. I pushed my legs to the breaking point, heading for the city, but I knew my time was running out. The factions had already sent word ahead. All 4 gates of Jiangzhou were being locked down. Massed teams were pouring out of the city, some even bringing trained hounds to sniff me out of stealth. It was a total dragnet. Back in the city, at the Chu family estate, Chu Yinran sat on the edge of a sofa, her face pale with anxiety. Across from her sat a man in his 40s, his expression cold and unmoving. The hunt for my life had officially become a war. "Dad, why won't you step in and save Zhongfan?" Chu Yinran's voice was a mix of confusion, anxiety, and sharp resentment. She stood in the middle of the living room, her face pale. Her father, Chu Batian, the lord of Jiangzhou City, let out a heavy sigh. He looked at her with a helpless expression. "Yinran, it's not that I don't want to help him. He's outside the city walls. I'm powerless out there. I didn't know it yet, but the man who ran my city was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Inside Jiangzhou, his word was law. But outside, the lure of a blood brave and 10 plots of A-grade fertile land was too much. It was a king's ransom. Every major power in the city was losing their minds over the bounty on my head. A blood brave and that much land. It's enough to make any faction go insane," Chu Batian muttered. "The strongest experts in these groups need that loot to stay alive. They won't compromise. Right now, the factions were moving in the shadows. They weren't acting openly, which was the only reason they hadn't clashed with the city guard yet. But it wasn't just 1 or 2 groups. 5 top-tier factions and 7 first-class families were all hunting me. Even if my principal mobilized every man he had, he couldn't suppress 12 major powers at once, especially since they were operating in the wilderness where he had no legal jurisdiction. If he confronted them, they'd just lie to his face and say they had nothing to do with it. But look at his talent. Chu Yinren argued, her voice rising. If he dies, the higher-ups will hold you responsible. It's an immeasurable loss for the country. He's the only student in the history of Jiangzhou to graduate with an SSS rank evaluation. He's the only person in the world to ever clear a dungeon with a 9-star rating. And he's only level 9. He's been a professional for less than 2 days. Shouldn't we be doing everything to protect a genius like that? She was desperate to convince him. You're right. Chu Batian sighed again. I already reported his situation to the higher authorities, but their response was to just wait and see. Why? Chu Yinran's composure finally snapped. Are they really going to watch a genius die in the wilderness? They're practically helping the murderers. Yinran, calm down, her father said, clearly startled by her outburst. He knew his daughter. She was usually cold, distant, and hated getting involved in other people's business. The fact that she was losing her mind over a student was something he had never seen before. The government has their reasons. Knowing them, they won't let him die that easily. Then why aren't they moving? I don't know, he admitted. But listen, I've stationed men at all 4 gates. If Zhang Fan reaches them, no one will dare touch him. To attack him under the nose of the official guard is treason. In the wilderness, they can hide their identities and claim it was an accident. The wild is lawless, but the city gates are protected by the law. If they strike there, they're challenging the state itself. No faction can survive that. And if he doesn't make it back? Then that is his fate, he said solemnly. There's nothing more I can do. What about the law protecting new graduates? Chu Yinren asked, grasping at straws. Isn't it illegal to attack them in the wild? It's useless. They won't show their faces. Even if he's killed, there will be no evidence. The wilderness has too many variables for the law to actually reach. Chu Yinran stood up, her eyes cold. If you won't help, I will. I won't watch my student die. She turned to leave, but her father stopped her. Take your second uncle and a team of guards with you. Chu Yinran blinked, surprised that he was actually letting her get involved, but she didn't waste time asking why. She hurried out. Chu Batian watched her go and took a slow sip of tea. Girls, they grow up so fast, he whispered. I wonder what the higher-ups are really planning. Chu Yinran met her uncle at the south gate. She had heard that I escaped an ambush near the east gate, but that route was now crawled with level 30 professionals. I couldn't go back that way. She guessed I would head for the south gate because she had been there with me earlier, and it was slightly closer than the north gate. She was right. I was running for my life, pushing my body to the limit. I wasn't running in a straight line, though. I was zigzagging, doubling back, and changing directions constantly to throw them off. It was the only reason the level 30 and 40 hunters hadn't caught me yet. They had to keep stopping to track my scent and footprints. But my luck was running out. A mile away, a middle-aged woman with spiritual energy swirling around her ears pointed toward a thicket. There, he went that way. Despite all my tricks, the gap in our stats was just too big. My base agility was only 70.8. With my equipment and the Annihilation Armor boost, I hit 180.8. For a level 9, I was a speed demon. But these hunters were level 35 at minimum. Their agility stats were in the thousands. The level 40s were hitting 3 or 4,000. I heard the sound of air tearing behind me. The whistling of high-speed movement was getting louder. I was still dozens of kilometers away from the south gate. I looked back. They were closing in. A mile was nothing to them, a blink of an eye. I knew that if they caught me this time, I wouldn't be walking away. They wouldn't even give me a chance to hand over the loot. They wanted me dead. I knew exactly how this would end. In this world, the person who grabs the treasure owns the treasure. No one was going to sit back and watch someone else take the prize. They followed the rule of the first strike. I was certain that the moment they reached me, they wouldn't hesitate to kill me just to snatch what I had. Chu Yinran was only a kilometer away. For a level 40 professional pushing their limits, that distance could be crossed in a heartbeat. Death was staring me in the face, but I didn't panic. My mind stayed sharp, and my heart stayed calm despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. I kept running, my thoughts racing faster than my feet. I thought back to the storage ring I had worked on yesterday. It had taken me 10 minutes and 2 attempts to carve the suppression runes onto it. Right now, I didn't have 10 minutes. I didn't even have 10 seconds. I had to try a different way to control the fertile field space stone. I decided to use the bloodbinding method. It was a technique used to claim ownership of treasures through one's own blood, but it didn't work on everything. I wasn't sure if it would work on a space stone. Maybe I missed that lesson in school, or maybe my teacher never mentioned it. It didn't matter. It was my only chance to live. I saw a river 2 meters ahead of me and lunged. While I was midair, I swiped my finger across the sharp tip of an arrow. Blood seeped out instantly. I pressed my bleeding finger firmly against the fertile field space stone. The moment my feet hit the surface of the water, my body vanished. In my place, a smooth pebble the size of a goose egg fell into the river with a soft splash. Seconds later, my pursuers reached the bank. They skidded to a halt, looking around frantically. I was gone. The scouts among them scanned the area, desperate to find a trace of me. Wait, did that kid actually activate the space stone? A middle-aged man shouted, staring at the water. A look of pure dread crossed his face. Damn it, a woman cursed. She didn't hesitate and dived straight into the river. The other level 30 professionals followed her, plunging into the water like a pack of hungry wolves. The river was 5 meters wide and about 2 meters deep. With so many people thrashing around, the clear water turned into a muddy mess within seconds. They were forced back to the shore to wait for the silt to settle. This time, they didn't just jump in blindly. They stood on the bank, eyes scanning the riverbed for anything that looked like a space stone. When someone spotted a suspicious-looking pebble, they dived again. How are we supposed to find it in this? Someone yelled, clutching their head in frustration. The current and the depth made it impossible to tell one rock from another. Get the water attribute professionals down there, a level 40 man commanded. Everyone else, get out of the water. It was a smart move. Water-type users had a much higher perception under the surface. They could feel the faint energy fluctuations leaking from the stone, something the others couldn't sense through the pressure of the river. The rest of the hunters retreated to the shore, leaving the specialists to comb the bottom. An hour passed. The tension was thick enough to cut. Frozen miles, a sharp voice rang out. A blast of icy blue energy shot into the river. The flowing water turned to solid ice in an instant, radiating a bone-chilling cold. The water attribute professionals beneath the surface had to smash their way out through the ice, shivering as they scrambled back to the bank. Everyone turned toward the source of the spell. A young woman stood there, slowly lowering her staff. Chu Yanran, someone whispered, recognizing her immediately. A level 40 professional glared at the middle-aged man standing beside her. Chu Lingtian, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Chu Lingtian didn't say a word. It was Chu Yanran who spoke, her voice like ice. What do you think you're doing? Chu Lingtian, are you really letting a junior speak for you? The man sneered. Chu Lingtian laughed casually. My niece is just looking for her student. She's in charge of this whole thing. If you're looking for someone, go look for them. Why attack us? The man countered, his eyes narrowing. Is the Chu family trying to start a war with us? He was being clever. He didn't mention the city lord's office. He specifically named the Chu family. He wanted to frame this as a private family matter rather than an official government intervention. If they weren't acting as officials, the hunters didn't have to hold back. As long as they didn't kill Chu Yanran or Chu Lingtian, they could beat them or capture them without much legal trouble. The Chu family has no interest in starting a war, Chu Yanran said, stepping forward. But if anyone bullies my student, I won't just stand by. A level 40 woman stepped up, her body glowing with fiery energy. You're only level 29. You don't have the right to talk like that. Do you think I'm invisible? Chu Lingtian stepped in front of his niece. A sharp, metallic aura erupted from him, instantly crushing the woman's heat and forcing her back. The woman adjusted her mask, her eyes burning with rage. Chu Lingtian, do you really think your small team can stop all of us? Why would I stop you? Chu Lingtian asked with a smirk. I'm just curious. There are so many of you. How are you going to divide the treasure once you get it? Can you even make that decision? Will the people backing you agree to the split? He was poking at their weakest point, trying to break their alliance from the inside. Suddenly, the ice on the river shattered. 3 figures burst out of the water and landed on the shore. In midair, one of them threw a capture net, trapping another person instantly. The 2 attackers rushed the trapped man the moment they hit the ground. "Get back!" a level 40 professional shouted, flashing forward to shield the trapped man. He threw 2 powerful punches, sending the attackers flying. Everyone's eyes locked onto the man in the net. He was clutching a pebble the size of a goose egg. It was glowing with a faint, pulsing energy. I stood inside the endless fields of the spatial stone, watching everything unfold in the outside world. My hands were steady as I finished carving spiritual arrays onto every inch of the fertile land within the stone. In my other hand, I gripped the blood chrysalis. I had a simple plan. If those people outside managed to break my blood tool, I would destroy everything. I wouldn't leave them a single scrap. I never imagined my first trip out of the city would attract a mob of level 30 and 40 professionals. I couldn't fight them yet, but I could make sure they gained nothing. What surprised me most was seeing Chu Yanran. It looked like she had actually come all this way just to save me. Outside, the tension reached a breaking point. "What? You want to keep it all for yourself?" one of the level 40 professionals shouted. The crowd had surrounded the man who held my spatial stone. "Everyone, calm down," the man holding the stone said, checking it over. "The kid is hiding inside this stone and won't come out. We can't get to him for now. In my opinion, we should find a way to break his blood tool first, then talk about how to divide the loot." A blood tool. That was a problem. To break one, they needed a tool-breaking charm, and those weren't common. The crowd went silent, calculating the cost. Chu Lingtian saw his chance. "Since none of you can break it, why not let Zhang Fan come out? I'll guarantee his life. I'll have him hand over a few treasures, and you all can split them amongst yourselves. How does that sound?" He was trying to buy me time. If they couldn't get in, he had leverage. But the greed in the air was too thick. "We want the blood chrysalis," a level 40 man from the Qin family stated flatly. "Nothing else matters. If Zhang Fan feels cheated, we can even pay him for it." "You think you're the only one who wants it," another voice barked. "The chrysalis is ours. We can negotiate on the rest, but that stays with us." Everyone started shouting at once. That chrysalis could extend a person's life by 10 years. To these big families, that was worth more than any amount of gold. "Since you can't agree," Chu Lingtian suggested, "why don't we head back to the city and hold an auction? May the best bid win." It was a smart move. Once we were back in the city, the authorities would take over, and these masked thugs wouldn't be able to bully me so easily. "Chu Lingtian, do you think we're idiots?" someone sneered. "If we go back to the city, that chrysalis will end up in the hands of the Chu family." Chu Lingtian laughed. "You're overthinking it. My father has passed, and my brother and I are in our prime. We don't need to extend our lives yet." "Would the Chu family really be this kind just to save a random student?" another voice challenged. "Unless you tell us your real motive, why should we trust you? Speak plainly, Chu Lingtian. What do you really want?" Chu Lingtian looked frustrated. I could tell he was confused by his own brother's orders. Chu Batian had told him to help me as a private citizen, not as an official. If he had come as an official, these people wouldn't dare touch me. But as a private citizen, he lacked the muscle to hold them all back. "Don't try to provoke us," a masked man warned. "Stay out of this, Chu Lingtian. Are you really going to ignore the law?" Chu Lingtian's voice turned cold. "Are you really going to murder a new student under level 10? "We've already come this far," the man replied. "Do you think we're going to stop now?" Chu Lingtian's brow furrowed. He knew they were right. They were all masked. Without direct evidence, the law couldn't touch them. And even if I handed over the treasure now, they wouldn't let me live. They had hunted me across the wilderness. We were enemies now. With the talent I had shown, they knew that if I lived to grow strong, I would be the one hunting them. They couldn't afford to leave a witness who was also a genius. Inside the stone, I realized the gravity of my situation. They weren't just after the loot anymore. They were after my life. I wasn't afraid of death, but the thought of my parents hurt. They had raised me, and I hadn't even had the chance to repay them before being cornered by these vultures. Being a level 9 archer against a dozen level 40s was a nightmare scenario. I had no way out. "If you can't break the seal, why be so obsessed with killing him?" Chu Lingtian tried one last time. "Let's just talk this out. Chu Lingtian, an old man with cold eyes, asked. Would you bet the survival of your entire Chu family on the mercy of a victim? If you were in our shoes, would you let a genius like him walk away after trying to kill him? Chu Lingtian fell silent. He knew the answer. In this world, if you strike a genius, you have to finish the job. If you don't, you're just waiting for your own funeral. No one was willing to gamble their family's future on my kindness. Time is running out, a portly man said, breaking the silence. If the authorities show up, we're all finished. I have a tool-breaking charm. I'll use it, but the blood chrysalis belongs to me. You guys can have the rest. No way, someone shouted immediately. We need that chrysalis. There's only one, the portly man snapped. If everyone keeps fighting over it, nobody gets it, and we all get caught. Do you want to wait here for the guards to arrive? He looked around the circle, his eyes hard. No one spoke. The air was thick with greed and the looming threat of the charm in his hand. If any of you can produce a tool-breaking charm, we can give up the blood chrysalis, the portly man said, his voice cutting through the tension. He waited for a few seconds. Silence. No one moved. He spoke again, his tone sharper this time. You all want the chrysalis for your families. But if this brings disaster to your doorstep, is it really worth it? Make a decision. The authorities will be here any second. Fine. One of the leaders finally grunted. We agree to your plan, but we handle the kid ourselves. I watched them exchange looks. They were terrified of the government showing up, so they reached a consensus. They didn't realize that Chu Lingtian wasn't here on official business yet. They assumed the Chu family was also after me and was just stalling for time. But they knew the Chu family couldn't hold back the guards forever. Their plan was simple. Kill me before the authorities arrived. Without a body or evidence, the government wouldn't start a war with major factions over a dead genius. Second uncle, Chu Yinran cried out. She saw them moving in. She was desperate, but the power gap was too wide. You people really have no respect for the law, do you? Chu Lingtian stepped forward. A dark gold-heavy blade materialized in his hand. A violent, golden aura erupted from his body, and a 3-meter-long phantom blade flickered behind him like a vengeful spirit. Chu Lingtian, you're breaking the rules, someone shouted. The crowd frowned, their eyes burning with rage. They had asked him earlier if the Chu family was declaring war, trying to see if he was here officially or privately. By not answering then, he had signaled he was acting on his own. Now that they were ready to kill, he was hiding behind his official title. It was a dirty move in their world, but Chu Lingtian didn't care. He couldn't let me die. If I fell here, the higher-ups would blame his brother, Chu Batian, for the loss of such a talent. Rules, Chu Lingtian sneered. A group of level 30 and 40 experts hunting down a newbie? You want to talk to me about rules? The attackers went silent. They looked at each other, paralyzed. No one wanted to be the first to charge Chu Lingtian. He was a level 50 S-class Golden Blade general. Below level 50, he was practically untouchable. Rumor had it he had even fought an SS-class power-type warrior to a standstill. These men were hiding their identities and couldn't use their signature moves without exposing their families. If they got caught, they were finished. You're strong, Chu Lingtian, one man hissed. But there are many of us. You can't stop us all. I don't need to stop all of you, Chu Lingtian said, taking a heavy step forward. The ground seemed to tremble. I just need to kill a few of you to give my superiors an answer. The question is, who wants to be the one to die for the others? The pressure was suffocating. Just as the standoff reached a breaking point, the air above us suddenly tore open. A figure stepped out of a void of shattered space. Chu Batian, someone gasped. Everyone froze. Tearing through space was a skill exclusive to space-class professions. Chu Batian wasn't a space class, yet here he was. The attackers stared with wide eyes, but even Chu Batian looked confused. He had been at his desk handling paperwork a second ago. Send the blood chrysalis to the capital. An old, powerful voice echoed in Chu Batian's ear. He instinctively glanced toward the direction of the capital. That one look was enough to shatter the attackers' resolve. They realized someone far more powerful than they could imagine had forcibly teleported Chu Batian here. It's over, someone whispered. The experts from the capital are watching. We're leaving, they shouted, scattering like rats. The man holding my spatial stone looked at it, then at Chu Batian, and cursed. He dropped the stone and fled into the night. Zhang Fan, are you okay? Come out. Chu Yanran ran over and scooped up the stone, her voice trembling. I hesitated inside the spatial dimension. I looked at Chu Batian, then at her. Whatever, I thought. If they want me dead, I'll just destroy everything I have. I stepped out into the open air. Thank you, Teacher Chu, City Lord Chu, and everyone else for saving my life, I said, cupping my hands in a respectful salute. Are you hurt? Chu Yanran grabbed my arm, checking me for wounds. Her face was full of worry. I'm fine, Teacher Chu, I said, feeling a bit awkward at her intensity. She realized she was being a bit too enthusiastic and pulled back, her face flushing. Right? Good. As long as you're okay. Let's go, Chu Batian said, glancing at his daughter before turning away. We're heading back to the city. I let out a long breath I didn't know I was holding. The Chu family really wasn't my enemy. Dad, wait for me. Chu Yanran called out as we began the trek back, leaving the shadows of the dungeon behind. Two elderly men appeared in the sky above the river, floating as if the air were solid ground. They looked to be in their 70s, their presence commanding and ancient. Old Mo, one of them said, looking down. What do you think of this kid? Old Mo smiled and nodded. Not bad. Not bad at all. Whether it's his talent or his mental fortitude, he's impressive. I agree, the first man replied. His talent is monstrous, and he's decisive. But there's something strange about him. An archer using assassin skills? His speed far exceeds anyone at his level. And then there's the spatial barrier I placed on him. It didn't just fail. It vanished. Old Mo's eyes widened. What? You're not joking, are you? You're saying he broke your spatial barrier on his own? He blocked attacks from 2 level 40 professionals without taking a scratch. He had assumed the first man had intervened to save me. But the man shook his head. Even if those attackers didn't use their full strength, those hits required level 30 defense to tank. My spatial barrier wasn't at full power either, but it should have withstood a full strike from a level 30 attacker. Is a genius with a 9-star evaluation really this terrifying? He's only level 9, yet he has the defense of a level 30 professional. His attack power isn't quite there yet, Old Mo noted. Otherwise, he would have cleared the dungeon even faster. But that ability to break the barrier, it wasn't about raw power. It seemed like a unique defensive method. I've never seen anything like it, the first man admitted. So what do you think? Should we let him lead the team into the ancient battlefield? This time, we need to give those restless countries a lesson they'll never forget. Let's go back and discuss it, Old Mo said. I'm actually starting to look forward to this year's trip. Back in the city, the atmosphere was much calmer. Chu Batian exchanged a few pleasantries with me before getting down to business. Zhang Fan, he said seriously, according to the regulations, your fertile land space needs to be handed over to the state. These spaces are vital for the national food supply and spirit medicine distribution. I hope you understand. I do, City Lord Chu, I replied immediately. It's the law. I'll hand it over. Don't worry, Chu Batian said, pleased by my cooperation. The government will provide the extraction charms. For 10A rank fertile land spaces, the state will compensate you with 10 billion coins. 10 billion. That was the official market price, 1 billion per space. I had no complaints. Haha, don't call me City Lord Chu. It sounds too formal. He laughed, glancing at his daughter, Chu Yanran. If you don't mind, just call me Uncle Chu. I felt a strange spark of excitement. If I called him Uncle, wouldn't that make me the same rank as my teacher, Chu Yanran? Uncle Chu, I said with a grin. Good. If you ever need anything in Jiangzhou City, come to me. As long as it's legal, I'll settle it for you. Chu Batian looked at me like a proud father-in-law. He didn't seem to care about the age gap between me and his daughter at all. Thank you, Uncle Chu, I said, though his intense gaze made me feel a bit fidgety. Now, Xiao Fan, since we're family now, I won't beat around the bush. You still have the blood cocoon, right? I do. What do you plan to do with it? I want to auction it, I said, but I have some specific needs for the payment. I listed out what I wanted, but since I had grown up poor, I didn't actually know what the rarest treasures were. I mostly asked for basic high-level resources. Chu Batian looked surprised. I scratched my head awkwardly. Actually, Uncle Chu, do you have any suggestions? Chu Yanran huffed, looking at me with exasperation. You never pay attention in class, do you? You don't even know how to maximize your own benefits. Don't tell people you're my student. Chu Batian laughed. Then why don't you help him out, Yinran? She didn't hesitate. A set of A-rank lightning attribute archer clothes, A-rank lightning armor, an A-rank lightning skill or core, lightning boots, and a full set of lightning accessories. All first tier. Chu Batian whistled. Those are hard to find. First tier A-rank gear is as rare as B-rank gear for beginners. Getting it all in lightning attribute will require a lot of luck. Resources are replaceable, Chu Yinran snapped. Life isn't. Chu Batian turned to me. Xiao Fan, any adjustments? Actually, I said, thinking of my own stats. The bow must have a critical hit attribute, but I don't need the armor. If I could swap that for something that increases my energy capacity, that would be better. Chu Yinran looked like she was about to explode. Zhang Fan, you're driving me crazy. You're an archer. You have low defense. Armor is the most important thing to keep you alive. Why do you want energy? If you run out, just drink a potion. Don't you know anything? She scolded me for a full minute, her face red with frustration. Finally, she threw up her hands. I'm done with you. She turned and stormed out of the room. Haha, don't mind her, Chu Batian said, watching her leave. I spoiled her, but are you sure about the armor? I'm sure, I said firmly. I knew my own defense was already insane. I needed the mana to spam my skills. Fine. If you've made up your mind, I won't argue. The capital needs that blood cocoon. I'll report your requirements exactly as you stated. Chu Batian trusted me. He knew anyone who could survive 2 hours against level 40s, while only being level 9, had to have a reason for his choices. One more thing, he added. Since you cleared the trial with an SSS evaluation, the City Lord's office is awarding you Villa number 2 in Yulong Bay. You can move in whenever you like. I've already told the management. I was stunned. A villa? That had never happened in Jiangzhou City before. Thank you, Uncle Chu. Land in Jiangzhou City is limited. Villas are the ultimate luxury. They aren't just about having money. You need massive contribution points to even qualify to buy one. I only had 10,000 points from clearing the 1,000-ton crypt, which was nowhere near the 1,000,000 points required. Yet, Chu Batian had just handed me the keys to one. I hadn't expected a reward this massive. I spent a little more time talking with him until someone brought over a chi-breaking talisman. I used it to sever my blood connection to the Leontion space stone and wiped away my mental array patterns. I left the blood cocoon and the stone behind and walked out of the City Lord's mansion. Xiao Fan, my parents were waiting right outside. They looked incredibly anxious. I had sent them a message to let them know I was safe, but they had rushed here anyway. They hadn't dared to come inside for fear of causing me trouble, so they'd just been pacing at the gates. Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? I asked, rushing toward them. My mother, Li Wei, grabbed my arms and started checking me for injuries. Xiao Fan, are you hurt? Are you okay? I'm fine, Mom. Not a scratch, I promised. My father, Zhang Jingguo, looked worried. Xiao Fan, why did those people put a bounty on you? What's going on? It was just a small misunderstanding. It's all settled now, I said. My mother looked at me with a mix of doubt and relief. I gave them a reassuring smile. Don't worry. I got an SSS evaluation for my graduation. The government won't let anything happen to me. Uncle Chu handled everything personally. Uncle Chu? My father asked. You mean City Lord Chu? That's the one, I said. And not only did he fix the problem, he rewarded me with a villa in Yulong Bay. My father's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Yulong Bay? Xiao Fan, are you serious? When I nodded, he started to panic. No, that's too expensive. We can't take that. To them, a villa was an impossible dream. Having one handed to us felt dangerous. The next morning, the sun broke through the mist as our taxi pulled up to the grand gates of the Yulong Bay Villa District. I paid the driver and stepped out. My parents followed, completely speechless. This was the top luxury neighborhood in Jiangzhou. It wasn't just a place to live. It was a symbol of ultimate status. The security was so tight, they said even a fly couldn't get in without being registered. Xiao Fan, can we really go in there? My mother whispered. She kept tugging at the hem of her new clothes, looking incredibly out of place. I took her hand and squeezed it. Relax, Mom. Uncle Chu said Villa number 2 is in my name now. This is our home. See? You're just being a country bumpkin, my father teased, though his own hands were shaking. My mother shot him a glare, and he went quiet. I led them toward the property management center. As I pushed open the heavy glass doors, a blast of air conditioning hit us. Well, if it isn't Zhang Fan. A sharp, mocking female voice cut through the lobby. I looked over and saw Zhaoying. She was wearing expensive designer sportswear. Her makeup was flawless, and she was watching us with a sneer. Internally, she was probably cursing Jin Xiaohua for failing to kill me in the wilderness. She hadn't seen the news yet. She'd been grinding in dungeons all day yesterday and went straight to sleep afterward. What a coincidence, she said, clicking her high heels across the floor toward us. She scanned me and my parents from head to toe. When she saw how nervous my parents looked, her lip curled in disgust. Did you come here to sightsee? Or are you trying to find a janitor job for your parents? She let out a piercing laugh. My eyes went cold. Zhaoying, I'll settle our debts later. Settle debts with me? You. She laughed harder. You're a loser. Trust me, if I don't want them here, your parents couldn't even get a job sweeping the floors. Then I guess the janitor job is perfect for your parents instead. I snapped back. I had no intention of playing nice. She had spent 3 years making my life hell in high school. You're looking for death, she shrieked. Security, get these 3 beggars out of here. The property manager stepped forward, waving the guards back. He had received a memo that a teenager named Zhang Fan would be coming to collect the keys for Villa No. 2. He knew who Zhaoying was, but he wasn't about to offend the city lord's guest. Hello, sir, the manager said respectfully. How can I help you? I'm here for the keys to Villa No. 2, I said. Zhaoying acted like I'd just told the funniest joke in history. The keys? Zhang Fan, at least try to make your lies believable. She stepped up and pointed a finger right at my face. Do you know where you are? This isn't a wet market. You need tens of millions of credits and 1 million contribution points to buy a place here. How did you pay for it? Did you sell your father? Or your mother? She looked at my parents with pure contempt. Look at you. You're trash. You don't belong here. Get out before you embarrass yourselves any further. My parents were shaking with rage and shame. They didn't know how to fight back against someone like her. Are you finished? I asked. My voice was low, but it carried a cold, predatory weight. I looked at her like she was a target I was about to eliminate. You. Before she could finish, I swung my hand. The slap echoed through the hall, sending her stumbling back 2 steps. That was for my parents, I said, my gaze sharp with killing intent. Respect them, or I'll break you. For the first time in her life, the arrogant Zhaoying looked truly terrified. Bring me the keys to Villa No. 2, I said. My voice was flat, calm, and utterly demanding. The property manager didn't hesitate for a single second. His posture shifted instantly, his back bending into a deep, 90-degree bow. He looked like he was trying to fold himself in half to show his respect. Mr. Zhang, please, forgive my delay, the manager stammered, his voice trembling with urgency. City Lord Chu gave specific orders last night. He said the moment you arrived, you were to be treated with the highest priority. The keys and all the paperwork for Villa No. 2 are ready. We were just about to hand-deliver them to you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a beautiful black gold silk box. He held it out with both hands, offering it to me like a sacred relic. When he clicked it open, a set of black gold keys shimmered under the lobby lights. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. Zhaoying's face, which had been twisted in a sneer just moments ago, froze completely. She stared at the keys, then at the bowing manager, her mind clearly short-circuiting. Her mouth hung open, but no words came out. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes. She couldn't process it. How could a trash like me know the city lord? How could I afford a place that the most powerful families in Jiangzhou couldn't even buy? Villa No. 2 wasn't just a house. It was right next to the city lord's private residence. It was a symbol of status that money alone couldn't touch. Right then, her phone buzzed. She answered it mechanically, her eyes still fixed on me. Ying, is Zhang Fan your classmate? A voice boomed from the speaker. It was the head of her family. Listen to me carefully. No matter what it takes, you must get on his good side. This is a direct order from the family head himself. Do not screw this up. The line went dead before she could respond. Zhaoying looked like she wanted to scream. I watched her eyes fill with a toxic mix of confusion and pure, unadulterated hatred. In her mind, I was still the F-rank failure. She couldn't handle the fact that the heavens seemed to be favoring me. I could see the murderous intent boiling over in her gaze. She didn't care about my SSS rank evaluation. To her, a dead genius was worth nothing. She took one last, trembling breath, glared at me with venomous eyes, and stormed out of the building. I watched her back as she disappeared. I knew what she was thinking. She was going to try and have me killed. "You're graduating tomorrow," I thought coldly. "If you really try to ambush me, tomorrow will be the day you die." With the formalities finished, the manager insisted on personally escorting us to the villa. We reached the gates of Villa Number 2, a massive estate that looked more like a palace than a home. "Mr. Zhang, we are here," the manager said, bowing again. "There is a direct line to our office just inside the entrance. If you need anything at all, anything, just call." "Thanks for the help," I replied. "It was an honor, sir. I'll leave you to settle in." He scurried away, looking relieved that he hadn't offended me. My mother, Li Wei, watched him go with a stunned smile. "The staff here are so polite," she whispered. "Not like our old neighborhood, where the managers go out of their way to make life difficult." She didn't realize that these people weren't being polite out of the goodness of their hearts. They were terrified. Between my status and the city lord's personal backing, they wouldn't dare breathe the wrong way around us. My father, Zhang Jingguo, was beaming. "Haha, Xiao Fan, you've really done it. You've brought honor to the Zhang family. We're the only ones in the entire clan to live in Yulong Bay." We stepped inside, and the sheer luxury of the place took their breath away. My parents walked on tiptoes, afraid to even put their full weight on the floors. The living room ceiling soared 10 meters high. The floor wasn't made of tiles. It was solid slabs of premium white jade that felt like walking on clouds. A massive crystal chandelier hung above us like a frozen waterfall, refracting the sunlight into 1,000 tiny rainbows. The furniture was even more insane. The sofas were carved from 1,000-year-old sandalwood, topped with soft silk cushions. It was the kind of wealth that felt heavy. "Xiao Fan, how much did this cost?" my mother asked, her voice shaking. She looked at the floor like she was worried the dust on her shoes would ruin a masterpiece. "Mom, it's just a house," I said with a small smile, guiding them further in. "It's all just decoration. Don't worry about it." We explored the rest of the place. The dining room had a table that could seat 20 people. The master bedroom had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's largest artificial lake. The bathtub was carved from a single piece of black jade. My father stood by the window, looking out at the shimmering water. "Can we really live here?" he asked, his voice dry. It felt like a dream he was afraid to wake up from. "It's our home now, Dad. Just relax and enjoy it." I stood beside him, looking down at the private garden. I thought back to the cramped, dark apartment in the slums where we'd spent our lives. Back there, even a bit of sunlight was a luxury. Here, the world was at our feet. Strength, I thought. Strength really is everything. "Xiao Fan," my mother said, suddenly snapping out of her daze. "Don't go anywhere today. I'm going to call everyone. We need to host a massive housewarming party tonight." I shook my head slightly. "No need for a party, Mom. Let's just live our own lives from now on. Those people have nothing to do with our family anymore." My mother snapped, her voice thick with lingering resentment. She was thinking about yesterday. When my life was on the line outside the city, she had begged our relatives to help. She had asked anyone with a combat profession to go look for me. They all refused. They made up every excuse in the book to stay safe, while I was left for dead. "But they're still relatives," my father muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "Relatives? What relatives?" Mom turned on him, her eyes flashing. "Yesterday, they watched your son die outside those walls and didn't lift a finger. Did they care about family then? They were heartless first, so don't blame us for being cold now. They wouldn't risk a scratch for Xiao Fan. Why should they enjoy the life he built?" She pointed a finger at my father's chest. "Zhang Jingguo, listen to me. If you ever associate with any of them again, don't blame me for kicking you out of this house." "Mom, stop," I said softly. "It's not worth getting angry over them. I had seen through those relatives a long time ago. Growing up, my grades were poor, and everyone labeled me as a failure who would never amount to anything. Except for my aunt, the rest of them treated us like trash. They acted as if letting my family do their chores was some kind of divine charity. I had no good memories of them, and I had no intention of starting now. My father didn't argue. He walked silently to the balcony, lit a cigarette, and took a long, heavy drag. Ding dong. "Master, you have visitors," a mechanical voice announced. A holographic screen shimmered into existence in the middle of the living room. The villas in Jade Dragon Bay were top of the line. The smart doorbell system scanned the house to find the residents and projected a live feed of the front gate directly to us. Outside the gate stood a crowd. I counted at least 30 or 40 people. They were all dressed in expensive suits, looking like the elite of the elite. "Would the master like to disable the doorbell system?" the AI asked. "If disabled, further attempts to ring will be ignored." I looked at the screen. I didn't recognize a single face, but I could guess who they were. "No need," I replied. "Xiao Fan, who are they?" my father asked, crushing his cigarette. "I don't know, Dad. You and Mom stay here and rest. I'll go down and see what they want." I walked down the stairs and opened the massive front doors. I scanned the crowd. My pulse didn't quicken, but I noted one thing immediately. Every single person standing there was a fourth-term professional. The power gathered on my doorstep was staggering. "Can I help you?" I asked coolly. "Haha, I am Chun Lai, head of the Chun family," a man in his 60s said, stepping forward with a practiced smile. "I heard a new neighbor moved in and came to pay my respects. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, young friend. I am Wu Kaixing, head of the Wu family. Please excuse the sudden visit. Dong Yuhui, head of the Dong family. It's an honor to meet you." One by one, they introduced themselves. These were the heads of Jiangzhou City's 5 top powers and 7 first-class organizations. The heavy hitters of the city were all standing on my lawn. "I didn't realize such important guests were coming," I said, stepping aside. "Please, come in. There's an old saying, you don't hit a smiling face." Besides, I wanted to see what these people were up to. These were the same factions that had been hunting me just yesterday. "I just moved in today, so I'm not prepared for guests," I apologized as they filed into the living room. I didn't even know where the tea sets were kept, and I certainly wasn't going to go looking for them. "You're too kind," Chun Lai said. "We are the ones who disturbed you. I didn't want to play games. You are all famous figures in Jiangzhou. I assume you didn't come here just to see the wallpaper. What's this about?" Chun Lai laughed, waving his hand dismissively. "Young friend, you misunderstand. The Chun family is simply here to congratulate you on your new home. It's a small gesture." He placed several boxes on the table. 2 Grade C experience beads for a first turn. 2 skill beads, 1 for an equipment mechanic and 1 for an armor repairer, to help reach the first turn at level 11. And, "We've parked a small commuter car in your driveway. Please, don't reject it." The others followed suit immediately. The Wu family has also brought 2 Grade C experience beads and the necessary skill beads for a second turn at level 21. We hope you find them useful. Gift after gift piled up on the table. To me, a guy with billions in the bank, these things weren't expensive. I could buy them all 100 times over. But I noticed a pattern. These gifts weren't for me. They were perfectly tailored for my parents. None of these old foxes mentioned yesterday. They didn't talk about the chase or the bounty. They were here to apologize without leaving a paper trail. If they admitted guilt and I refused to settle, I could use the law against them. So, they stayed silent and offered tribute instead. I looked at the pile of gifts and stayed silent for a moment. Then I smiled. "I accept your kindness. If these gifts had been for me, I would have thrown them out. But they were for my parents." And looking at the bigger picture, these families were the backbone of Jiangzhou's defense. If a monster tide hit the city, I needed them strong. Since I hadn't actually lost anything and they were showing this much sincerity, I decided to let the grudge go. "Haha, excellent," Chun Lai said, handing me a black gold business card. "Zhang, my friend, this is my card. If you ever need anything in Jiangzhou, just call the Chun family." The other heads crowded in, offering cards and promising that my business was now their business. Once the crowd finally left, my parents came downstairs. My mother looked at the table, then at me. "Xiao Fan, were those the people who were causing you trouble yesterday?" "It's fine, Mom. It's over now," I said. "Take these. Use them to level up your professions." My father looked worried. "Can we really trust them?" To him, These families were like unshakable mountains. He couldn't wrap his head around them, bowing to his son. Don't worry, I assured him. We don't have a conflict of interest anymore. Plus, with Uncle Chu backing me, they won't dare try anything. I used Chu Baishan's name just to put them at ease. It worked instantly. Right, Mom said, her face brightening. City Lord Chu is backing you. They wouldn't dare. Xiaofan, you must thank him properly. He's our family's savior. I know, Mom. I reached into my pocket and handed her a bank card. I have to head out for a bit. Take this card and hire some professional housekeepers. Don't worry about the cost. Get the best. The password is your and Dad's birthdays. I pointed to the row of keys on the table. The cars they gave us are in the driveway. Take whichever one you like. Go buy whatever else the house needs. I had originally planned to take my parents' car shopping today, but that was no longer necessary. I grabbed a stray set of keys from the table and headed out the door. I drove straight to the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. As soon as I stepped inside and headed for the auction house on the 7th floor, the president himself came out to greet me. Haha. Welcome, Mr. Zhang. It's an honor to have you here, President Su said, bowing slightly. Hello, President Su, I replied. You're too kind. Please, this way. He gestured toward a private VIP reception room. A staff member quickly served us tea. President Su personally poured me a cup, his movements careful and respectful. He had heard the rumors. The news of me being hunted by major factions yesterday had spread like wildfire. When he found out I had played a cat-and-mouse game with a group of fourth-turn professionals for hours and made it back alive, he was stunned. As a level 47 powerhouse himself, Su knew exactly how easy it was for a fourth-turn professional to crush a level 9 rookie. Surviving that wasn't just luck, it was a miracle. Because of that, his hospitality today wasn't just professional, it was filled with genuine admiration. So, Mr. Zhang, he started, setting the teapot down. Are you looking for a specific treasure today, or are you here to put something up for auction? Take a look at these, I said. With a flick of my wrist, I pulled out the B-rank and C-rank equipment I'd looted. President Su's eyes widened. B-rank again? Most people could spend their entire lives hunting monsters and never see a single piece of B-rank gear. I had produced them 2 days in a row, and not just one piece at a time. My luck was bordering on the impossible. He examined the items carefully, his brow furrowing. Fire attribute. Mr. Zhang, I'm going to be honest. I personally don't recommend putting these up for auction. I was confused. Why would he turn away business? Why is that? If you auction them now, you won't maximize your profit, he explained. The gear you brought in yesterday had no class restrictions, so everyone bid on them, driving the price up. These pieces are powerful, but they have specific class requirements. Fewer bidders means a lower final price. What do you suggest then? I asked. 2 options, he said, holding up 2 fingers. First, you sell them directly to us. I'll buy them at 80% of the last auction's average price. To sweeten the deal, I'll waive all the handling fees from your previous batch of sales. Second, we act as brokers and find the perfect buyer for you across the country. That usually costs extra in fees, but for you, I'll keep the rate the same as before. He picked up his tea, waiting for my answer without any pressure. I'll take the first option, I said immediately. With the wealth I had now, a small price difference didn't matter. I didn't want to waste time waiting for buyers. Excellent. Su beamed. He was thrilled. By buying them outright, the auction house could stockpile the gear and sell it slowly over the next year to maximize their own prestige and profit. I'll transfer the gold to your account as soon as the previous auction settles. I appreciate it, President Su, I said. I decided to hold on to my dungeon essence and the rest of the rewards for now. I wasn't hurting for cash, and those materials might be useful for my own growth later. After leaving the auction house, I headed down to the 2nd floor. I went back to the same shop where I had bought the condensation armor. That piece of gear had saved my life. Without the withered armor skill it provided, I would have died outside the city walls, likely at the hands of Brother Hui and his thugs. Little brother, welcome back. The shop owner jumped up from his tea the moment he saw me. To him, I wasn't just a customer anymore. I was a walking gold mine and a future legend. If he could maintain a connection with me, he could brag about it for the rest of his life. Sit. Try this tea. Tell me what you think, he said, scurrying to pour me a cup. I took a sip. It was thick and sweet, a good brew, though not quite at the level of the stuff President Sue served. It's good, very sweet, very fragrant. Haha, I'm glad you like it. Here, take a few bags home with you. He shoved a package of tea toward me. I thanked him and got down to business. I have some common gear and monster cores to sell. Give me a price, I said, laying them out. I can give you 170,000 for the lot, the owner said. He looked nervous, staring at me as if he were afraid I'd be offended by the offer. I nodded, satisfied. Then, I pulled out my quiver. Check this too. How much to repair these arrows? Equipment wears down. If you don't maintain it, the power drops, and eventually, it just breaks. He picked up one of the arrows, his expression turning serious. C-rank gear. The exterior wear is about 20%. Wait, that's not right. The internal damage is much higher.